We live in a world where people spend their entire lives searching for love, approval, and validation from others. Yet many forget the one person they desperately need to love first, themselves. Think about it. How many times have you stood in front of a mirror and only seen what was wrong with you? How many times have you spoken to yourself with words you would never use on someone you love? Buddhism teaches that the relationship you have with yourself sets the foundation for everything else in life. If you cannot treat yourself with compassion, every compliment will feel hollow. If you do not value yourself, every relationship will feel incomplete. But when you learn to love the person in the mirror, fully, unconditionally, you unlock a peace that no rejection, no failure, and no loneliness can ever take away. Today, I want to share with you 7 powerful lessons that will help you fall in love with yourself first, so that you can walk through life with confidence, clarity, and unshakable inner peace. 1. See yourself without illusions. The Buddha often reminded us that wisdom begins with seeing reality as it truly is, not as we wish it to be or as others expect it to be. This teaching is not only about the world outside of us, but also about how we see ourselves when we stand in front of the mirror. For most of us, the image we carry in our minds is clouded with illusions. We wear countless masks each day, sometimes without even realizing it. There is the mask of perfection, where we try to hide all our insecurities behind smiles, achievements, and carefully polished appearances. There is the mask of strength, where we pretend that we are never hurt, never afraid, and never vulnerable, even though deep down we are struggling. And there is the mask of control, where we try to convince ourselves and others that we have everything figured out, when in truth we feel lost and uncertain. These masks may protect us for a while, but they also distance us from our true selves. They create a gap between who we really are and the image we present to the world. Over time, this gap becomes heavy, exhausting, and painful, because you can only carry a false image for so long. To truly love yourself, you must take off those masks and dare to see yourself honestly. This is not about pretending that you have no flaws or weaknesses, nor is it about hating yourself for having them. It is about acknowledging that both your strengths and weaknesses belong to you, and together they form your wholeness. Just as night and day coexist, just as the moon carries both brightness and shadow, every human being is a mixture of light and darkness. When you stop pretending to be someone you are not, you experience a deep sense of relief. You realize that you do not have to perform for the world, and you do not have to perform for yourself either. The cracks and scars you carry are not proof of failure. They are proof that you have lived, that you have tried, that you have grown. The fears you carry are not signs of weakness. They are reminders that you are human and capable of courage. The mistakes you have made are not permanent stains on your soul. They are lessons that shaped your journey and made you wiser. Buddhism teaches that self-acceptance is not about clinging to who you were in the past or creating illusions about who you wish to be in the future. It is about meeting yourself fully in the present moment, without filters, without lies, without pretense. When you look into the mirror and finally say to yourself, "This is me and this is enough," you plant the seed of true self-love. From that seed grows the freedom to live authentically, without the fear of judgment or the endless hunger for approval. That freedom is the beginning of inner peace. 2. Let go of harsh self-criticism. One of the heaviest burdens a person can carry is not the judgment of others, but the constant, unforgiving criticism of their own mind. For many people, the loudest voice they hear each day is not the voice of encouragement, but the voice of self-doubt, constantly whispering that they are not good enough, not successful enough, not attractive enough, or not worthy of love. This harsh inner critic often speaks with more cruelty than any enemy could, and yet because it is inside us, we believe it without question. Buddhism teaches us that the mind is powerful. It can be your greatest friend or your most destructive enemy, depending on how you guide it. If you allow the voice of self-criticism to dominate your thoughts, it becomes like a prison, locking you in cycles of shame and guilt, preventing you from ever feeling at peace with yourself. Think about how you treat others in moments of struggle. If a close friend came to you crying because they had failed at something, would you look them in the eye and call them worthless? Would you remind them of every mistake they have ever made and tell them they will never improve? Of course not. You would sit with them, listen to their pain, and remind them that their value is not defined by one mistake. You would comfort them, reassure them, and encourage them to try again. Yet so often, when we are the ones struggling, we deny ourselves the same compassion. Instead of treating ourselves like a friend, we treat ourselves like an enemy, piling on harsh words until we feel crushed. Buddhism invites us to practice compassion not only for the world around us, but for ourselves. Every time that inner critic rises, we must learn to pause and see those thoughts for what they are, passing clouds, not eternal truths. The Buddha taught that just as we are kind to others, we must learn to be kind to our own hearts. If we would never speak cruelly to a child, why do we think it is acceptable to speak cruelly to the child within us? Letting go of self-criticism does not mean ignoring your flaws or pretending you are perfect. It means shifting your perspective so that flaws are no longer punishments, but opportunities for growth. Mistakes do not define you, they guide you. Failures do not destroy you, they teach you. Every shortcoming is simply a reminder that you are human, and to be human is to be imperfect. The more you resist this truth, the more you suffer. The more you embrace it, the more you free yourself. When you begin to replace the voice of self-criticism with the voice of compassion, you will feel lighter. Instead of saying, "I am not good enough," you begin to say, "I am learning." Instead of saying, "I always fail," you begin to say, "I am growing." Instead of saying, "I will never be happy," you begin to say, "I am on the path toward peace." Words are powerful, and the ones you repeat to yourself every day create the foundation of how you feel about your life. Buddhism reminds us that suffering often comes not from reality itself, but from the way we think about it. If your mind is filled with constant criticism, then even on a good day, you will feel heavy and defeated. But if your mind is trained in kindness, even on difficult days, you will find strength and patience within yourself. Self-love begins the moment you stop punishing yourself for being human and start honoring yourself for the courage it takes to live, to try, and to keep moving forward despite challenges. The next time you catch your reflection in the mirror, pause and listen to the words you are speaking to yourself in silence. If they are harsh, remember that you have the power to change them. Choose words that heal, not words that wound. Choose compassion over criticism. With every act of kindness you give to yourself, you break free from the chains of the inner critic and move closer to the freedom of self-love. 3. Practice loving kindness, metta, toward yourself. In Buddhist practice, one of the most beautiful and transformative meditations is called metta bhavana, or the cultivation of loving kindness. It is a practice where you send wishes of love, peace, safety, and happiness, first to yourself and then to others, extending outward like ripples on a calm lake. Many people are quick to send kindness to friends, family, or even strangers. But when it comes to themselves, they feel unworthy of the same compassion. They can forgive others, but not themselves. They can wish happiness for others, but rarely for the person they see in the mirror. And yet, the Buddha taught that you cannot pour from an empty cup. If your heart is not full of kindness for yourself, how can you genuinely give it to others? Practicing metta toward yourself begins with a simple intention. Sit quietly, close your eyes, place your hand over your heart, and repeat these gentle phrases. May I be safe. May I be healthy. May I be peaceful. May I live with ease. At first, the words may feel uncomfortable or even unnatural. Your mind may resist, arguing that you do not deserve such kindness or reminding you of your flaws and mistakes. This resistance is common because many of us have spent years listening to the voice of self-criticism rather than the voice of compassion. But with practice, the words begin to soften your heart. They become like water, slowly carving a path through stone, gentle, persistent, and deeply transformative. What makes metta so powerful is that it goes beyond surface-level affirmations. It is not about forcing yourself to believe you are perfect. It is about planting seeds of goodwill in the soil of your heart, even if the ground feels dry at first. Each time you repeat these loving wishes, you water those seeds, and over time, they begin to bloom. Slowly, you start to notice a shift. The harsh inner critic grows quieter. The feelings of self-hatred begin to fade. You catch yourself smiling more often at your own reflection, not because you have become flawless, but because you have become gentler with yourself. Metta practice also reminds us of the truth of interconnectedness. When you cultivate loving kindness for yourself, you are not isolating yourself in selfishness. You are building a foundation of love that naturally extends outward. Imagine a candle lighting another candle. The first flame does not diminish, it only spreads light. In the same way, when you generate love for yourself, you increase your capacity to love others. A heart that is harsh and cold toward itself cannot offer true warmth to anyone else. But a heart that is kind inwardly radiates kindness outwardly, touching everyone around it. The Buddha once said, "You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection." Reflect deeply on this. You are not excluded from love. Your worth is not something you must earn by achieving perfection. You are already deserving of kindness simply because you exist. Metta meditation teaches us to embrace this reality, to extend the same compassion we would give a dear friend to ourselves. Imagine carrying this practice into your daily life. When you make a mistake at work, instead of calling yourself a failure, you pause and whisper inwardly, "May I be patient. May I be kind to myself. May I learn from this." When you feel tired, instead of pushing yourself with harshness, you say, "May I find rest. May I be gentle with my body." When you feel lonely, instead of sinking into despair, you remind yourself, "May I know that I am enough, even as I am." These small acts of metta slowly reshape the way you relate to yourself, and over time, they become second nature. True self-love is not built in grand moments of success. It is built in these quiet moments of kindness that you choose to give yourself again and again. By practicing loving kindness toward yourself, you transform your relationship with your own mind and heart. You move from being your own harshest critic to being your own closest ally. You discover that you are not unworthy, not broken, not undeserving. You are a human being, worthy of love, compassion, and peace, just like everyone else. 4. Release the trap of comparison. One of the greatest obstacles to loving yourself is the habit of constantly comparing your life, your body, your achievements, and even your happiness with those of others. We live in a world that amplifies this tendency. Every day we are surrounded by carefully curated images of people's best moments, on screens, in conversations, in stories told to impress. It is easy to believe that everyone else is doing better, living more beautifully, or achieving more meaningfully than you. The mind begins to whisper, "Look at them, they are ahead of you. Look at her, she is more beautiful. Look at him, he is more successful. Why aren't you like that?" This voice grows louder with each comparison, and soon it drowns out your ability to appreciate your own journey. Instead of seeing your life as unique and sacred, you see it as not enough. Buddhism teaches us that comparison is a form of craving, a craving to be someone else, to live another life, to carry another destiny. This craving leads only to suffering because it pulls you away from the present moment and into an illusion. The truth is that no two people have the same path. Each person is shaped by their own karma, their own experiences, their own lessons, and their own timing. Just as the ocean contains countless waves, each rising and falling in its own rhythm, so too does life unfold differently for each individual. Comparing yourself to another is like comparing the sunrise to the moonlight. Both are beautiful, both are necessary, and both belong to their own time. When you are trapped in comparison, you forget this truth. You measure your worth by standards that were never meant for you. You start believing that your happiness depends on achieving what someone else has, whether it is their wealth, their looks, their success, or their relationships. Yet even if you were to gain those things, they would not bring peace, because peace does not come from being someone else. It comes from being fully yourself. Consider the flower and the tree. The flower does not look up at the tall tree and despair over its size. The tree does not look down at the flower and feel ashamed of its blossoms. Each simply grows as it was meant to grow. The lotus rises from muddy waters and blooms in its own time, untouched by the progress of other plants. This is the wisdom that Buddhism calls us to remember. Your life is not supposed to look like anyone else's. The timing of your growth, the shape of your journey, the lessons of your path, they belong only to you. When you release the trap of comparison, you free yourself to see your own worth clearly. Instead of asking, "Why am I not like them?" you begin to ask, "What is beautiful about my journey?" You start noticing the strength you have built from your struggles, the compassion you have gained from your suffering, the resilience you carry in your heart. You begin to see that the very things you once felt insecure about are the same things that make your story meaningful. The Buddha taught that suffering often comes not from reality itself, but from the way we think about reality. Comparison is a perfect example of this. The truth is that there will always be someone who has more than you, and there will always be someone who has less. If you allow your happiness to depend on comparison, you will never feel at peace, because the cycle will never end. But if you ground yourself in the present moment and honor your own life as it is, you discover a joy that does not rely on being ahead or behind anyone else. Imagine waking up tomorrow and choosing to measure your worth not against another person's life, but against your own growth. Imagine asking yourself not, "Am I as good as them?" but instead, "Am I becoming a little wiser, a little kinder, a little more compassionate than I was yesterday?" This shift in perspective changes everything. It removes the poison of envy and replaces it with the medicine of gratitude. Instead of feeling small when you see others succeed, you can celebrate them, knowing that their journey does not threaten yours. Instead of feeling bitter when others seem happy, you can rejoice in their joy, knowing that happiness is not limited, but infinite. To fall in love with yourself, you must let go of the chains of comparison. The mirror in front of you should reflect your own truth, not a shadow of someone else's. The moment you stop comparing, you reclaim your energy, your focus, and your peace. You begin to realize that your story is not late, not lacking, not lesser. It is perfectly unfolding exactly as it was meant to. 5. Embrace impermanence. You are always becoming. One of the most profound teachings of Buddhism is the truth of impermanence. Everything in this world is constantly changing. Our thoughts, our bodies, our emotions, our relationships, even the seasons of our lives. Nothing stays the same forever. Yet, despite knowing this, in theory, we often resist it. We cling to the past, wishing we could undo mistakes or relive moments of happiness. We fear the future, imagining all the ways it might bring us pain. And in the process, we forget to live fully in the present moment. To truly love yourself, you must embrace impermanence, because it is through impermanence that you realize you are not a finished product. You are always becoming. Think of a river. The water that flows past you now is not the same water that will flow a moment later. The river is never fixed, yet it is always whole. In the same way, you are not the same person you were yesterday, and tomorrow you will not be the same as you are today. Your mistakes are not permanent marks that define you forever. Your pain is not an eternal sentence that you must carry for life. Even your weaknesses and limitations are not fixed. They shift and transform as you grow. When you look into the mirror, the person staring back at you is not the sum total of your failures or regrets. They are a living, breathing being who is constantly evolving. Yet many people make the mistake of freezing themselves in time. They cling to an old story about who they are. I am a failure, I am unworthy, I am broken. And they repeat it so often that they begin to believe it is permanent. But Buddhism reminds us that just as a tree loses its leaves in winter and blooms again in spring, you too are always capable of renewal. Who you were in the past is not who you have to be in the future. Every sunrise is a chance to begin again. Every breath you take is an opportunity to step into a new version of yourself. Embracing impermanence also means letting go of perfectionism. So many people delay self-love because they are waiting to become flawless before they can accept themselves. They say, I'll love myself when I lose weight, when I get the job, when I achieve this goal, when I stop making mistakes. But this mindset traps you in endless dissatisfaction because life will never freeze long enough for you to meet some imagined standard of perfection. The truth is that you are already worthy of love, even as you are becoming. Self-love is not about waiting for a perfect moment. It is about embracing yourself in every imperfect moment along the way. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from clinging to the idea that things should stay the same, clinging to the belief that we can control what is meant to change. When you cling to your past mistakes, you suffer. When you cling to the idea of how your life should look, you suffer. But when you let go and accept impermanence, you discover freedom. You realize that your story is not stuck, that your pain will pass, that even your darkest nights contain the seeds of dawn. Think about your own life. Reflect on times when you thought you would never heal, when the pain felt endless. Yet here you are, you made it through. The person you were then is not the person you are now. You survived, you grew, you became stronger, and this is the truth of impermanence. Nothing, not even your suffering, lasts forever. This truth is not meant to frighten you, but to comfort you. It means that you are always in motion, always transforming, always becoming something new. When you embrace impermanence, you begin to love yourself differently. Instead of judging yourself harshly for not being where you want to be, you recognize that you are on a journey. Instead of condemning yourself for past mistakes, you see them as stepping stones that led you to this moment. Instead of fearing change, you welcome it as part of your unfolding. You realize that self-love is not about clinging to one fixed image of yourself, but about walking with compassion beside every version of yourself as you evolve. The mirror then becomes a sacred space. You no longer look into it with shame or disappointment, expecting to see someone perfect. Instead, you look with tenderness, knowing that the reflection is only a glimpse of a moving river. Today's reflection may carry scars, but tomorrow's will carry healing. Today's reflection may look tired, but tomorrow's will glow with new strength. You are never finished. You are always becoming. To love yourself fully, you must learn to embrace this truth of impermanence. You are not stuck in your past. You are not defined by your struggles. You are not trapped in who you used to be. Like the lotus that rises from the mud, you have within you the ability to transform again and again. When you accept that nothing is fixed, not your pain, not your failures, not your current self, you begin to live with a new kind of freedom. You stop waiting for perfection, and you start embracing the beauty of becoming. And in that acceptance, you find not only peace, but the deepest form of self-love. 6. Honor your body as a sacred home. In Buddhism, mindfulness is not limited to the mind alone. It extends to the body as well. Every step, every breath, every movement is an opportunity to practice awareness and gratitude. Yet, in today's world, many people treat their bodies as if they were burdens to be criticized or objects to be judged. They look in the mirror and see only flaws. They pinch their skin, count their scars, compare their shape with others, and speak words of harshness to themselves. But Buddhism teaches that the body is not a punishment, not a decoration, not a tool for comparison. It is a sacred home, a temporary but miraculous vessel that allows you to experience this life. To fall in love with yourself, you must learn to honor your body as it is, with all its strengths, imperfections, and quiet miracles. Think for a moment about everything your body has carried you through. Your legs have walked you to places where memories were made. Your arms have embraced people you love. Your eyes have shown you sunsets, mountains, rivers, and the faces of those dearest to you. Your ears have allowed you to hear music, laughter, and words of comfort. Your heart has beaten tirelessly, day and night, without your command, keeping you alive with every pulse. Your lungs have drawn in the breath of life thousands of times today, without you even noticing. And yet, instead of thanking this sacred home, most people criticize it. They focus on how it looks rather than on the miracles it performs every second. The Buddha taught that mindfulness is the art of truly seeing things as they are. When you bring mindfulness to your body, you begin to shift from judgment to gratitude. Instead of standing in front of the mirror and asking, "Why am I not perfect?" you begin to ask, "How can I take care of this precious home that carries me?" Instead of obsessing over how others see you, you begin to appreciate the ways your body allows you to see and experience the world. Gratitude softens judgment, and judgment is often the greatest enemy of self-love. Honoring your body also means treating it with kindness through the choices you make every day. The food you eat, the rest you allow yourself, the way you move and care for yourself, these are all forms of self-love. Many people punish their bodies, pushing them to exhaustion, feeding them without care, ignoring their signals of pain or fatigue. But when you practice mindfulness, you begin to notice how your body speaks to you. Hunger is its way of asking for nourishment. Fatigue is its way of asking for rest. Pain is its way of warning you to slow down. To love yourself is to listen to these signals with respect, not to silence them with neglect. Buddhism also reminds us of the truth of impermanence when it comes to the body. This body will age, it will change, it will eventually return to the earth. This truth can seem frightening, but it is also liberating because it teaches us not to waste our days hating the very home we live in. When you realize that your body is temporary, you stop demanding perfection from it and begin to cherish it in its current form. Wrinkles become reminders of laughter and years lived. Scars become evidence of battles fought and survived. Every change is part of your unfolding journey, and every stage of your body's life deserves respect and love. To honor your body is also to release it from the prison of comparison. Your body is not meant to look like anyone else's. It carries your unique story, the strength in your hands, the curve of your shoulders, the lines of your face. All of these are part of your identity. No one else has lived your life. No one else has walked your path. Your body is a reflection of that journey. Instead of rejecting it, embrace it as sacred evidence of your existence. In Buddhist practice, walking meditation is one way of honoring the body. As you walk slowly, you become aware of each step, each breath, each sensation. You realize that even something as simple as moving your feet is a gift. In that awareness, the body is no longer taken for granted. It becomes a source of wonder. Imagine carrying this same reverence into your daily life. When you eat, you savor each bite, thanking your body for receiving nourishment. When you rest, you thank your body for its tireless work. When you move, you celebrate the strength and mobility you have been given. Loving yourself through honoring your body does not mean ignoring its needs or pretending it never suffers. On the contrary, it means listening more deeply. When your body aches, you care for it. When it is weak, you nurture it. When it is tired, you allow it to rest. This gentle relationship with your body becomes the foundation of self-love, because you are no longer at war with yourself. You are living in harmony with the sacred home you have been given. The mirror, which once reflected flaws, becomes a sacred altar. Each time you see your reflection, you can remind yourself, "This body is my home. It allows me to live, to love, to grow. It may not be perfect, but it is mine, and I honor it." In that moment, you are no longer criticizing, comparing, or condemning. You are loving. And that love radiates outward, changing the way you walk, the way you speak, and the way you live. To honor your body as a sacred home is to finally treat yourself with the reverence you deserve. It is to recognize that you are not just a mind, not just a soul, but a whole being living inside a miraculous vessel. When you fall in love with this body, not because it is flawless, but because it is sacred, you discover a peace that no criticism or comparison can take away. 7. Find peace in simply being. Perhaps the greatest act of self-love is to learn how to be at peace with yourself without conditions. For most of our lives, we are taught that our worth depends on what we achieve, how we look, how others perceive us, or how much we contribute. From childhood, we are praised when we do well and criticized when we fail, and this pattern often shapes our adult lives. We begin to believe that we are only worthy of love if we are successful, only deserving of rest if we are productive, only valuable if someone else validates us. But Buddhism teaches us a profound truth. Your worth does not come from doing, it comes from simply being. You do not have to prove anything to anyone in order to be enough. The mind, however, is restless. It is constantly looking for something to cling to. It whispers that happiness is always one step ahead. Once you achieve that goal, once you earn that promotion, once you fix that flaw, once you find that relationship. But the problem with this thinking is that the finish line keeps moving. No matter what you achieve, the mind quickly finds another condition, another standard, another reason why you cannot rest yet. This endless chase keeps you trapped in dissatisfaction, always believing you are incomplete. The Buddha called this cycle dukkha, a state of suffering that arises when we are never content with the present, always chasing something else. To find peace in simply being is to step out of this cycle. It means realizing that you are not defined by your titles, possessions, or appearances. It means learning to sit quietly with yourself, without distractions, and still feel whole. Imagine sitting under a tree, breathing deeply, with nothing to do and nowhere to go. At first, the mind resists. It tells you that you're wasting time, that you should be working, improving, achieving. But if you stay long enough, a shift begins to happen. The noise in your mind softens, your breath slows, and you begin to feel a quiet joy in the simplicity of being alive. This is the peace that Buddhism points toward, not a peace that depends on circumstances, but a peace that arises from within when you stop running. Finding peace in being also means letting go of the need to constantly judge yourself. When you sit in stillness, thoughts will come. Memories of mistakes, worries about the future, harsh words from your inner critic. Instead of fighting these thoughts or believing them, you simply observe them, like clouds drifting across the sky. You realize that they are not permanent, not solid truths, but passing events. This realization frees you from being trapped by your own mind. You no longer have to chase away negative thoughts or cling desperately to positive ones. You simply allow everything to come and go, knowing that beneath all of it, there is a deeper stillness that is untouched. The Buddha once said, "Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without." This teaching is simple yet powerful. Many people search endlessly for peace in the external world, in relationships, in wealth, in recognition. They believe that once they find the perfect partner, earn enough money, or gain enough approval, they will finally feel complete. But true peace does not come from outside, because everything outside is impermanent. People change, wealth fades, recognition disappears. If your peace depends on those things, it will vanish when they do. But if your peace is rooted in simply being, if you can sit with yourself in silence and feel content, then nothing in the external world can take it away. Finding peace in being is not the same as laziness or giving up on goals. It does not mean you stop working, growing, or striving to improve yourself. Rather, it means you no longer tie your self-worth to those achievements. You work not because you need to prove yourself, but because you enjoy the process. You grow not because you hate who you are, but because you love yourself enough to keep evolving. You set goals, but you do not make your happiness depend on reaching them. This is the difference between chasing life and living it. When you find peace in being, you begin to act from a place of wholeness rather than from a place of lack. Think of the lotus flower, a powerful symbol in Buddhism. It does not rush to bloom, nor does it compare itself with other flowers. It grows naturally, slowly, in its own time, rising from the mud to open its petals toward the sun. It does not need anyone's approval to be beautiful, and it does not try to be anything other than what it is. The lotus is at peace in simply being itself. In the same way, when you learn to rest in who you are without needing to perform, compete, or constantly prove yourself, you discover a deep serenity that cannot be shaken. Another way to understand peace in being is through the practice of mindfulness. When you eat with full awareness, tasting each bite. When you walk, you feel each step touching the earth. When you breathe, you notice the air entering and leaving your body. These simple acts, done with awareness, remind you that life is happening here and now. You do not need to rush into the future or replay the past to find meaning. Meaning exists in the present moment, and when you live fully in it, you feel whole. This wholeness is self-love. It is the recognition that you are enough right now, without conditions. Peace in being also transforms the way you see yourself. Instead of identifying only with your roles, student, parent, worker, friend, you begin to see yourself as more than any label. Roles may change, circumstances may shift, but beneath it all, you are still you. You are a human being with a heart, a spirit, and a presence that is valuable simply because it exists. When you embrace this truth, you stop punishing yourself for not meeting expectations and instead begin to treat yourself with compassion. For many people, silence is uncomfortable because they are afraid of what they might hear within themselves. They fill their days with noise, distractions, and constant activity, so they never have to sit alone. But Buddhism teaches that if you can learn to be still, to listen to yourself without fear, you will find that silence is not empty. Silence is full of answers. In silence, you begin to hear your true self, the part of you that is not defined by fear, doubt, or criticism. In silence, you realize that you are not your mistakes, not your achievements, not your appearance. You are simply a being who exists, and that is enough. Imagine carrying this peace with you into your daily life. When someone criticizes you, instead of being shaken, you remain calm because you know your worth is not tied to their words. When life becomes stressful, instead of panicking, you breathe deeply and remember that this moment will pass, just as all moments do. When you feel tempted to chase validation, you pause and remind yourself that you already hold the love you are seeking within you. This is the strength of finding peace in being. It becomes your anchor in a world that is constantly changing. Falling in love with yourself is not about becoming perfect or proving anything. It is about sitting quietly with yourself, breathing deeply, and realizing that you are enough as you are. It is about knowing that you do not need to add anything to your existence to be worthy of love. The greatest gift you can give yourself is this acceptance, the acceptance that you are already whole, already complete, already deserving of peace. In the end, to find peace in simply being is to return home to yourself. It is to stop searching outside and finally rest in the truth that everything you were looking for, love, peace, and worthiness, was within you all along. This is the essence of Buddhism, the heart of self-love, and the path to true freedom. 8. Be your own source of love. Stop seeking outside. Start blooming within. One of the deepest truths in Buddhism is that suffering arises not only from clinging to impermanent things, but also from constantly searching outside ourselves for what can only be found within. For most people, love is something they are always trying to receive from the world, whether from family, friends, partners, or society. From childhood, we are taught that if others approve of us, then we are worthy, and if they reject us, then we are unworthy. This conditioning creates an endless hunger, a dependency on external validation. We wait for someone else to tell us we are beautiful, intelligent, capable, or lovable. But the danger in this is clear. When your sense of worth is tied to the changing opinions of others, your peace will always be fragile. You will rise when people praise you and collapse when they criticize you. You will feel whole when others stay and broken when they leave. Buddhism offers us a different path. The Buddha taught that true freedom comes from being rooted in yourself, from cultivating love that does not depend on external conditions. This is not selfishness, it is wisdom. To be your own source of love means you no longer beg the world to complete you. You no longer live in fear of rejection, because you no longer reject yourself. You stop chasing approval, because you already approve of your own existence. You stop demanding that others fill the emptiness inside you, because you realize that emptiness dissolves the moment you learn to love yourself fully. Consider the image of a candle. A candle does not need another flame to justify its light. It shines simply because that is its nature. And yet, when you place it next to another candle, its flame can light the other without losing anything of its own. In the same way, when you are rooted in self-love, you do not depend on others for your light. You shine because you exist. When others come into your life, you share your flame with them freely, but you are not diminished if they walk away. You remain whole, luminous, and steady. This lesson is especially important in relationships. Many people enter relationships hoping to be healed, completed, or saved by another person. They expect their partner to fix their insecurities, to constantly reassure them, to fill every void. But this is unfair to both people, because no human being can carry such a burden. A healthy relationship is not two broken halves trying to complete each other. It is two whole beings choosing to walk together. If you do not learn to love yourself first, you will cling to others with desperation, and desperation often leads to suffering. But when you are your own source of love, you approach relationships differently. You no longer enter them from a place of need, but from a place of abundance. You do not ask, "How can you complete me?" but rather, "How can we share our wholeness?" This shift transforms not only how you love yourself, but also how you love others. To become your own source of love, you must begin by noticing all the ways you have abandoned yourself. Perhaps you silence your own needs to please others. Perhaps you criticize yourself more harshly than you would ever criticize a stranger. Perhaps you chase after people who do not respect you, believing that if you can just earn their love, you will finally feel worthy. These habits are signs that you are searching outside for what must be cultivated within. To reverse this pattern, you must practice returning home to yourself again and again until self-love becomes your natural state. One way Buddhism teaches us to do this is through the practice of mindfulness. When you are mindful, you notice how often you run away from yourself. You see clearly the moments when you try to escape your own company by drowning in distractions, scrolling endlessly, or filling your silence with noise. Instead of escaping, you learn to sit with yourself in stillness, breathing gently and saying inwardly, "I am enough. I am here. I am worthy of love." At first, this may feel uncomfortable because it is easier to keep running than to face your own heart. But the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. You realize that being with yourself is not lonely, it is peaceful. Another powerful practice is compassion. Many people think compassion is something you only offer to others, but Buddhism teaches that compassion must begin with you. When you make mistakes, instead of punishing yourself, you can whisper, "I forgive you. You are learning. You are growing." When you feel insecure, you can remind yourself, "I am not less than anyone. My journey is my own." When you feel unworthy, you can sit quietly, place your hand over your heart, and send yourself love just as you would send it to a dear friend. This is not weakness. It is healing. Each act of compassion builds a stronger foundation of self-love. Being your own source of love also means letting go of the illusion that external achievements will make you finally feel complete. The mind loves to bargain with happiness. It says, "Once I get this job, then I'll feel proud. Once I lose this weight, then I'll love myself. Once I find this partner, then I'll be happy." But as soon as you reach one goal, the mind sets another. This is the trap of conditional love. It keeps you running endlessly, never allowing you to rest in the present moment. The truth is that no external achievement can permanently fill the emptiness you feel if you do not first learn to love yourself as you are. Achievements can bring joy, but they cannot replace self-acceptance. Real self-love says, "I am worthy now, even as I grow. I love myself now, even as I improve. My value does not wait on conditions. It already exists within me." The Buddha often used the metaphor of a tree. A tree does not ask the rain, the sun, or the earth for permission to grow. It simply grows because that is its nature. Even when storms come, the tree bends, but it does not beg the storm to spare it. Even when seasons change, the tree accepts them, knowing that its essence remains. In the same way, when you are rooted in self-love, you no longer beg the world for permission to exist. You live authentically, you grow in your own rhythm, and you remain grounded even when storms of criticism or rejection pass through. It is also important to understand that being your own source of love does not mean isolating yourself or rejecting the love of others. It means that you are no longer dependent on it. You can welcome love when it arrives and let it go when it leaves, without losing yourself in the process. You can enjoy praise without becoming addicted to it. And you can endure criticism without collapsing under it. You can connect deeply with others, not because you are desperate for validation, but because you genuinely want to share the fullness of your heart. To fall in love with yourself fully, you must learn to stop seeking outside and start blooming within. You are not an empty vessel waiting for someone else to fill you. You are already a complete being, carrying within you the seeds of love, compassion, and peace. The task is not to chase love, but to uncover it within yourself. And once you do, you will discover that you no longer walk through life begging for scraps of affection. You carry within you an endless well, and from that well you can drink whenever you are thirsty. From that well you can also share freely with others without fear of running dry. This is the heart of self-love in Buddhism. To realize that you are already whole, already complete, already deserving of love, not because of what you achieve or who approves of you, but simply because you exist. When you embrace this truth, you no longer chase after the world with desperation. You live with dignity, you walk with peace, and you love yourself in a way that makes you unshakable. 9. Silence the inner enemy. Transform self-doubt into self-trust. If there is one force that quietly destroys the relationship you have with yourself, it is the constant whisper of self-doubt. It is a voice that tells you that you are not good enough, not strong enough, not worthy enough. It questions your every decision, makes you second-guess your abilities, and leaves you paralyzed with fear of failure. This voice, left unchecked, becomes an inner enemy, and the tragedy is that most people believe it without question. They allow it to shape their identity, to sabotage their dreams, and to convince them that their potential is out of reach. Buddhism teaches us to recognize that the mind is not always a faithful friend. The mind is like a wild horse. It runs in every direction, filled with fears, illusions, and desires. Without training, it drags you wherever it wants to go. But with mindfulness and discipline, you can guide it, calm it, and make it your ally. Self-doubt is simply one of the illusions that the untrained mind clings to. It feels real, but it is not the truth. It is like a cloud passing across the sky. It appears heavy and solid, but if you reach for it, there is nothing there. To transform self-doubt into self-trust, you must first learn to see self-doubt clearly. The Buddha taught that awareness is the first step toward freedom. When you notice the voice of self-doubt in your mind, do not fight it or try to silence it immediately. Instead, observe it. Where does it come from? What story is it trying to tell you? Often you will find that self-doubt is not your authentic voice at all. It is an echo of someone else's words. Perhaps a teacher who said you would never succeed, a parent who criticized you harshly, or a society that constantly told you that you are not enough. Self-doubt feeds on old wounds, replaying them until you start believing they belong to you. But the truth is that they do not. They are borrowed voices, not your essence. Imagine a child learning to walk. Each time the child falls, they do not sit on the ground and conclude, "I am a failure. I should never try again." They simply stand up and keep going, trusting that they will eventually learn. That trust is natural, instinctive, yet somewhere along the way, as we grow older, we lose that trust and replace it with fear. We begin to see mistakes not as part of the journey, but as proof of inadequacy. Buddhism calls us back to the simplicity of the child's heart, the ability to try, to fall, and to rise again without attaching self-hatred to the process. Self-trust is built through compassion. When you stumble, instead of attacking yourself with cruel words, you offer kindness. You remind yourself that mistakes are not failures, they are teachers. When you hesitate because you fear not being good enough, you remind yourself that progress, not perfection, is the true path. When you doubt your worth, you bring to mind the teaching of the Buddha. You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. In this way, each act of compassion weakens the grip of self-doubt and strengthens the roots of self-trust. Another key practice is mindfulness. Self-doubt thrives in an unobserved mind. It grows stronger when you let it speak without challenge, repeating its lies until they sound like truth. But when you practice mindfulness, you learn to pause and question those thoughts. You notice the doubt rising, and instead of believing it blindly, you ask, "Is this thought helpful? Is it true? Does it serve me? or does it harm me? Often you will find that self-doubt has no foundation. It is just fear disguised as logic. By shining the light of awareness on it, you strip it of its power. Trust also grows from action. Many people wait to feel confident before they act, but Buddhism teaches that confidence often comes after action, not before. If you wait for self-doubt to disappear before you begin, you may never begin at all. Instead, you must act even with doubt in your heart, and each step you take weakens its grip. When you prove to yourself that you can face challenges, even imperfectly, you begin to trust yourself more deeply. Self-trust is not about never feeling afraid. It is about moving forward despite the fear, knowing that you have the strength to handle whatever comes. It is also important to let go of comparison when dealing with self-doubt. When you constantly measure yourself against others, your inner critic grows louder. You see their achievements and assume you are failing. You see their confidence and assume you are weak. But Buddhism reminds us that each person has their own path, their own timing, their own karma. Comparing your journey to someone else's is like comparing the sun and the moon. Each shines in its own time. To build self-trust, you must stop looking outward for validation and begin looking inward for progress. Ask yourself not, am I as good as them? But, am I better than I was yesterday? Have I learned? Have I grown? This shift changes everything. The transformation from self-doubt to self-trust also comes through the practice of presence. Self-doubt often lives in the future. What if I fail? What if they reject me? What if I am not enough? But the future is not real. It is only imagination. In the present moment, you are always capable. You are breathing. You are alive. You are enough. By grounding yourself in the present, you take away the fuel that self-doubt feeds on. In stillness, you realize that you do not need to know the entire path. You only need to take the next step. To love yourself is to silence the inner enemy and replace it with a gentle but powerful ally, the voice of trust. This does not mean you will never hear doubt again. The voice may still whisper from time to time, but it will no longer control you. You will recognize it for what it is, just a passing cloud, and you will return to the steady truth of your own worth. The Buddha compared the mind to a garden. If you neglect it, weeds of fear, doubt, and anger will grow. But if you tend it with mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom, flowers of peace and confidence will bloom. Self-trust is one of those flowers. It grows slowly through small acts of kindness, steady practice, and the courage to act even when afraid. And once it blooms, it fills your life with a fragrance that no storm can erase. When you learn to trust yourself, you no longer live at war with your own mind. You walk with confidence, not because you believe you will never fail, but because you know that even if you fall, you will rise again. You look into the mirror and see not a person who is lacking, but a person who is becoming. You recognize that you are not broken. You are a work in progress, shaped by every challenge, refined by every lesson, and strengthened by every moment of resilience. Silencing the inner enemy and transforming self-doubt into self-trust is one of the most powerful ways to fall in love with yourself. It allows you to live authentically, to pursue your dreams without fear, and to carry a peace that no criticism can shake. When you trust yourself, you no longer beg the world for permission to exist. You stand tall, breathe deeply, and know that you are enough, just as you are. 10. The unshakable heart, living with inner freedom and self-love. There is a story in Buddhist tradition about a monk who was once insulted harshly by a stranger. The stranger shouted, mocked, and tried to provoke him, but the monk remained calm, his expression steady, his heart unshaken. When asked later why he did not react, the monk simply said, "If someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" In the same way, when you refuse to accept hatred, criticism, or judgment, they remain with the giver, not with you. This is the essence of the unshakable heart, a heart so rooted in love, acceptance, and freedom that nothing from the outside can disturb its peace. To fall in love with yourself fully, the journey must end here, with the cultivation of an unshakable heart. Up until now, we have spoken about seeing yourself without illusions, letting go of criticism, practicing loving kindness, releasing comparison, embracing impermanence, honoring your body, finding peace in being, becoming your own source of love, and transforming self-doubt into self-trust. Each of these lessons prepares you for this final step, where love for yourself matures into a steady flame that no storm can extinguish. What does it mean to have an unshakable heart? It means that your sense of worth no longer rises and falls with the opinions of others. It means you can face failure without collapsing and receive success without arrogance. It means you are no longer enslaved by the endless chase for validation, recognition, or approval. Instead, you live with a quiet strength, anchored in the truth of who you are. The Buddha called this state equanimity, a balance of mind and heart that allows you to remain steady no matter what comes. Imagine the ocean. On the surface, waves rise and crash, tossed by winds and storms. But deep below, the ocean remains calm, unmoved by surface disturbances. In the same way, the unshakable heart lives at the depth of your being. Life may bring joy or sorrow, praise or blame, gain or loss, but at your core, you remain at peace. Cultivating this heart begins with self-love, because without self-love, you are constantly at the mercy of the world. If you do not love yourself, every criticism feels like truth. Every rejection feels like destruction. Every mistake feels like proof of your worthlessness. But when you love yourself deeply, you carry a shield of compassion. Criticism may sting, but it does not wound your essence. Rejection may hurt, but it does not strip you of dignity. Mistakes may humble you, but they do not erase your worth. Self-love gives you the resilience to withstand life's storms without breaking. But how do we actually develop such an unshakable heart? The path is long, but it begins with mindfulness. In every moment, you are bombarded with thoughts, feelings, and external influences. Without awareness, you are like a leaf in the wind, tossed in every direction. But when you cultivate mindfulness, you begin to notice how the mind reacts. You see how quickly you take offense, how easily you crave approval, how often you replay past regrets or fear future outcomes. This awareness is powerful because it gives you the choice to respond differently. You begin to see that you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them. You are not the storm. You are the sky that holds it. The second step is compassion. An unshakable heart is not hard or cold. It is soft, open, and kind. It does not resist pain by building walls. It embraces pain with tenderness. When you feel rejected, instead of adding self-hatred to your suffering, you offer yourself kindness. When you feel afraid, instead of condemning yourself for being weak, you whisper, "It is okay to be afraid. I am here for myself." Compassion is what allows the heart to remain open, even in difficulty. It transforms pain into wisdom and prevents suffering from turning into bitterness. The third step is letting go. Much of our suffering comes from clinging to the desire to be perfect, to be admired, to always be successful. But the truth of impermanence reminds us that everything changes. Praise and blame, gain and loss, pleasure and pain, they all rise and fall like waves. When you cling to them, you suffer. When you let them pass, you remain free. To have an unshakable heart is to love yourself so much that you no longer need to grip life tightly. You trust that you are enough, even when things change. Another aspect of the unshakable heart is the ability to face loneliness without fear. Many people are terrified of being alone because without the presence of others, they are forced to face themselves. But if you have cultivated self-love, solitude becomes sacred. Time alone is no longer emptiness, it is presence. You discover that your own company can be peaceful, fulfilling, even joyful. You no longer chase relationships out of desperation, but choose them out of genuine connection. When you can sit quietly with yourself and feel complete, you carry a freedom that no abandonment can take away. The unshakable heart also requires trust, not only trust in yourself, but trust in life. Buddhism teaches that everything unfolds according to conditions, like seeds planted in the soil. Some seeds sprout quickly, others take time, but each grows in its own season. When you love yourself, you stop forcing your life to match an imaginary timeline. You no longer panic when things take longer than expected, nor do you envy the pace of others. You trust that your life is unfolding as it should, that your path is your own, and that everything you experience, joy and sorrow alike, is part of your awakening. Perhaps the greatest sign of an unshakable heart is the ability to live with authenticity. When you do not love yourself, you wear masks. You say what others want to hear, do what others expect, and suppress your true self for fear of rejection. But when you cultivate deep self-love, you realize that your authenticity is your greatest gift. You no longer beg for acceptance because you accept yourself. You no longer hide your truth because you trust it. You no longer shrink to fit into others' expectations because you have discovered that freedom lies in being fully who you are. To live with an unshakable heart is not to escape life's challenges. It is to face them with courage, compassion, and wisdom. It is to fall in love with yourself so completely that you no longer fear what others think because their voices cannot shake your truth. It is to carry within you a love that is unconditional, unchanging, and infinite. This kind of self-love is not arrogance. It is not about inflating your ego or believing you are better than others. It is about recognizing your inherent worth, the same worth that exists in every being. It is about treating yourself with the same kindness you would wish for a loved one. It is about living in harmony with yourself so you can live in harmony with the world. The Buddha once said, "Hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This is the eternal law." This applies not only to others, but also to yourself. Your inner battles, your self-criticism, your self-doubt, they do not cease through more hatred. They cease only when you meet them with love. This love, when cultivated deeply, becomes unshakable. It anchors you in a peace that no storm can disturb. Imagine waking each day with this heart. You look in the mirror, and instead of searching for flaws, you smile gently at your reflection. You walk through the world, and instead of being swayed by every opinion, you carry a steady dignity. You face challenges, and instead of collapsing, you stand firm, knowing that you are more than any circumstance. You live authentically, speak truthfully, and act compassionately, not because you need to prove yourself, but because this is the natural expression of an unshakable heart. To fall in love with yourself first is the foundation. To cultivate the unshakable heart is the flowering of that love. It is the moment when self-love matures into freedom, freedom from the opinions of others, freedom from the weight of comparison, freedom from the endless chase for validation. It is the realization that you already carry within you everything you were searching for outside. And once you reach this point, you do not just fall in love with yourself, you fall in love with life itself. This is the gift of Buddhism, the gift of mindfulness, the gift of self-compassion, to guide you back to yourself, to show you that you are already whole, already worthy, already complete. When you embrace this truth, you no longer live as a prisoner of fear or doubt. You live with the unshakable heart, with love, with freedom, with peace. 11. The mirror of compassion, learning to see yourself as you truly are. For most of our lives, we see ourselves through a distorted mirror. It is a mirror made up of judgments from others, criticisms from our past, comparisons with those around us, and the harsh standards we impose on ourselves. When we look into this mirror, we rarely see our true self. Instead, we see a version shaped by illusions. I am not good enough. I am not beautiful enough. I am not successful enough. I am not lovable. These illusions become so familiar that we start to believe they are reality. But Buddhism teaches that true wisdom begins when we strip away illusions and see clearly. And nowhere is this teaching more important than in the way we see ourselves. The Buddha often compared the mind to a clear lake. When the water is still, it reflects reality perfectly. But when disturbed by waves, mud, or debris, the reflection becomes distorted. In the same way, when your mind is clouded with criticism, doubt, and fear, your reflection becomes distorted. You do not see yourself as you are. You see yourself as your illusions. To love yourself truly, you must learn to look into the mirror of compassion, where the water is calm and clear, and where you see not your imagined flaws, but your true essence. Compassion is the key to transforming the way you see yourself. When you stand in front of a mirror, the critical voice often arises first. Look at these imperfections. Look at how far behind you are. Look at all the ways you have failed. This voice speaks with such authority that you believe it. But compassion invites you to respond differently. Compassion says, you are human, you have suffered, you have tried, you have learned, you are worthy. Where judgment sees flaws, compassion sees humanity. Where criticism sees failure, compassion sees effort. Where self-hatred sees unworthiness, compassion sees a being who is simply trying to find peace. To practice compassion toward yourself, imagine how you would see a loved one who is struggling. If your closest friend came to you in tears, saying they felt worthless, you would not point out their flaws or remind them of their failures. You would embrace them, remind them of their strengths, and tell them they are loved. Yet how often do we offer ourselves the same kindness? Compassion begins when you treat yourself the way you would treat someone you love, with patience, gentleness, and understanding. In Buddhist meditation, compassion practices often begin by bringing to mind someone you care about deeply and silently wishing them peace. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be happy. May you live with ease. Once you feel the warmth of compassion in your heart, you slowly extend those same wishes to others, even strangers, even those who have hurt you. But perhaps the most difficult step for many is turning those wishes inward, saying, may I be safe, may I be healthy, may I be happy, may I live with ease. At first, these words may feel strange or uncomfortable. The critical mind may resist, saying, I do not deserve this. But with practice, the resistance softens, and you begin to believe the words. Slowly, the mirror clears, and you start to see yourself with compassion. This does not mean ignoring your mistakes or pretending you have no flaws. Compassion does not blind you. It helps you see more clearly. It allows you to acknowledge your mistakes without turning them into proof of unworthiness. It allows you to take responsibility without drowning in shame. It allows you to grow without punishing yourself. In this way, compassion becomes the lens through which you see your humanity. And when you see yourself with compassion, you begin to love yourself in a way that is steady, forgiving, and real. Think of a child learning to walk. Each time they fall, no one shouts, "You are hopeless, you will never succeed." Instead, they are encouraged, lifted up, and told, "Keep trying, you are doing well." And yet, as adults, we often forget to speak to ourselves with the same kindness. We punish ourselves for falling instead of encouraging ourselves to rise. But the truth is that you are always learning to walk in new areas of life, relationships, work, personal growth, inner peace. Falling is natural, and compassion is the hand that helps you rise again. The mirror of compassion also teaches us to see beyond appearances. Modern society constantly pressures us to value ourselves based on how we look, what we own, or how much we achieve. But Buddhism reminds us that these are temporary, impermanent, and ultimately shallow measures. Your worth does not lie in the perfection of your appearance or the size of your success. Your worth lies in your being, in the fact that you are alive, breathing, capable of love and wisdom. Compassion allows you to see this worth clearly, beyond the illusions of comparison and judgment. Another dimension of compassion is patience. So often we expect ourselves to transform instantly, to overcome our struggles overnight, to heal immediately. When we fall short of these expectations, we become harsh with ourselves. But compassion says, healing takes time, growth takes time, becoming takes time. Just as a tree does not demand its seeds to become fruit in a single day, compassion allows you to grow in your own season. It reminds you that you do not need to rush your journey. You are allowed to be a work in progress. When you practice compassion consistently, the inner critic begins to lose its power. Instead of being your own enemy, you become your own ally. Instead of fighting against yourself, you begin to walk beside yourself with support. This shift is transformative. Life's challenges do not disappear, but you face them differently. Failures do not break you because you meet them with kindness. Success does not inflate you because you remain grounded in compassion. Criticism from others does not crush you because you no longer criticize yourself. In this way, compassion becomes not just a practice, but a shield that protects your peace without hardening your heart. The Buddha taught that compassion is boundless. It cannot be contained. When you learn to see yourself with compassion, you naturally extend it to others. You realize that everyone around you is also fighting silent battles, also carrying scars, also longing for love. Your compassion for yourself becomes compassion for the world. This is why self-love is not selfish. It is the root of all genuine love. When you see yourself clearly, without illusions and with compassion, you create a foundation of peace that touches everyone you meet. Imagine waking up each morning, standing in front of the mirror, and instead of hearing the voice of judgment, you hear the voice of compassion. You are enough. You are worthy. You are loved. Imagine carrying that voice with you throughout the day, whispering kindness when you make mistakes, offering encouragement when you feel afraid, reminding you of your dignity when you feel rejected. This is the power of compassion. It changes not only how you see yourself, but how you live your entire life. To love yourself is to look into the mirror of compassion and see your true reflection, not the illusions of doubt or criticism, but the reality of your humanity, your worth, your wholeness. You are not broken. You are not unworthy. You are a human being on a journey, deserving of patience, kindness, and love. When you see yourself this way, you carry within you a peace that no judgment can shake. You fall in love with yourself not as a perfect image, but as a compassionate reality. And in that love, you find the freedom to live authentically, joyfully, and fully. This is the teaching of the mirror of compassion: to see yourself clearly, to love yourself fully, and to walk through life with a heart that is steady, gentle, and unshakable. 12. The inner sanctuary. Finding unconditional belonging within yourself. One of the deepest human desires is the longing to belong. From the time we are children, we seek belonging in our families, in friendships, in schools, in communities. We try to fit in, to be accepted, to be loved. This longing continues into adulthood, shaping our relationships, our careers, and even our sense of identity. At its core, belonging is the desire to feel safe, to feel seen, to feel like we matter. And yet, for many people, this search leads to suffering because they look for belonging only outside themselves. They chase acceptance from others, and when it is withheld, they feel rejected and broken. They adjust their personality, silence their truth, and wear masks to gain approval. But Buddhism teaches us a profound truth. If you do not first find belonging within yourself, no external belonging will ever be enough. To fall in love with yourself completely, you must create an inner sanctuary, a space of unconditional belonging that exists within your own heart. This sanctuary is not dependent on how others see you. It does not crumble when people reject you, and it does not vanish when relationships end. It is a permanent refuge, a place where you can return again and again to find peace, safety, and love. The Buddha often spoke about the importance of seeking refuge, not in external things which are impermanent, but in the truth of your own awareness. External belonging is fragile. People's opinions change, communities shift, relationships end. If your entire sense of worth depends on these things, you will always feel unstable. But when you cultivate an inner sanctuary, you carry belonging with you wherever you go. You are at home in yourself. You are safe in your own presence. You belong, not because someone else tells you so, but because you recognize your own inherent worth. Creating this sanctuary begins with recognizing the ways you have abandoned yourself. Think of how often you reject your own feelings. When you feel sadness, you tell yourself to toughen up. When you feel anger, you shame yourself. When you feel fear, you hide it. Think of how often you criticize yourself more harshly than anyone else ever could. Think of how often you betray yourself by staying in places or with people who dishonor your worth, simply because you are afraid of being alone. Each of these moments is a form of self-abandonment, and each time you abandon yourself, you deepen the wound of not belonging. Buddhism invites you to end this cycle by practicing radical self-acceptance. Radical self-acceptance means saying to yourself, I am allowed to feel what I feel. I am allowed to be who I am. I am allowed to exist without conditions. It is not about ignoring your flaws or pretending you have no room to grow. It is about creating a space within yourself where you do not need to perform or prove anything. In your inner sanctuary, you can lay down your masks, your defenses, and your fears, and simply be. This sanctuary is built through mindfulness. When you sit in meditation, breathing deeply and watching your thoughts without judgment, you begin to realize that you are more than your passing emotions, more than your fleeting doubts, more than your ever-changing self-image. Beneath all of it, there is a steady awareness that is always present. This awareness is your true home. It is unshaken by criticism, untouched by comparison, unaltered by failure or success. The more you connect with this awareness, the more you feel at home within yourself. Compassion is another pillar of the inner sanctuary. Many people feel unworthy of belonging because they are trapped in shame. Shame for mistakes, shame for weaknesses, shame for not meeting expectations. But compassion dissolves shame. Compassion says, you are human. You have suffered. You have tried. You are enough. When you practice compassion toward yourself, you no longer exile parts of yourself into the shadows. You welcome them into the sanctuary. You say to your fear, you are welcome here. You say to your sadness, you belong here too. You say to your mistakes, you are part of my journey, and I will not abandon you. This radical inclusion creates a sense of unconditional belonging within your own heart. Patience is also essential. Building an inner sanctuary is not an instant process. For years, you may have been conditioned to believe you are unworthy. You may have silenced your needs, ignored your feelings, and doubted your value. Undoing this conditioning takes time. Some days you may still hear the voice of the critic louder than the voice of compassion. Some days you may still feel the old fear of rejection. This is natural. Patience reminds you that belonging is not a destination you arrive at once. It is a practice you return to again and again. Each time you choose compassion over criticism, each time you choose acceptance over rejection, each time you choose presence over distraction, you strengthen the walls of your sanctuary. When your inner sanctuary is strong, you live differently. You no longer chase relationships out of desperation because you already feel whole. You no longer beg for approval because you already approve of yourself. You no longer panic when people leave because you carry a belonging that cannot be taken away. Instead of clinging to others, you meet them from a place of freedom. You do not ask, "Will you complete me?" Instead, you ask, "Can we walk together while remaining whole?" This changes the nature of all your connections. They become healthier, freer, more genuine. The Buddha once said, "You can search the entire universe for someone who is more deserving of your love and compassion than yourself, and you will not find that person anywhere." This teaching reminds us that the sanctuary we seek is not out there, it is within us. The belonging we crave is not in someone else's acceptance, it is in our own acceptance. The love we hunger for is not in another's heart, it is in our own. When you fall in love with yourself enough to build this sanctuary, you become unshakable. Life may bring rejection, but it cannot strip away your belonging. Life may bring loneliness, but you are never truly alone, because you are at home in yourself. Life may bring loss, but you remain steady, because you know that nothing external can take away the refuge within. Imagine walking through life with this sanctuary inside you. When others criticize you, you do not collapse because you know their words cannot touch your core. When others leave, you do not crumble because your belonging was never dependent on them. When challenges arise, you do not abandon yourself because you have learned to stay present, kind, and patient with your own heart. This is what it means to fall in love with yourself completely. To create a home within yourself so steady, so compassionate, so real, that you are always safe, always whole, always enough. In the end, the greatest gift Buddhism offers is not the promise of a perfect life free of suffering, but the wisdom to create peace within suffering. It is the reminder that while the world may change, betray, or reject you, you can always return to yourself. The inner sanctuary is that place of return. It is where you are always welcome, always worthy, always loved. To live with an inner sanctuary is to carry belonging wherever you go. It is to walk through the world not as someone desperate for love, but as someone who is already full of love. It is to live not with fear, but with freedom. It is to know, beyond doubt, that you are at home within yourself. And when you live this way, when you carry an inner sanctuary of unconditional belonging, you not only transform your own life, but you also become a source of peace for others. Your presence calms, your love heals, your authenticity inspires. This is the power of falling in love with yourself first. You become a sanctuary not only for yourself, but for the world. 13. Embracing your shadow, turning inner darkness into light. Every human being carries two sides within them, the light that shines through their kindness, compassion, and joy, and the shadow that hides in their fears, regrets, insecurities, and unhealed wounds. The shadow is the part of ourselves we often deny, reject, or try to bury. It is the anger we are ashamed of, the jealousy we do not admit, the mistakes we wish we could erase, the pain we pretend does not exist. We fear that if others saw these shadows, they would reject us. But even more deeply, we fear facing them ourselves, because it is easier to look away than to acknowledge the darkness within. Buddhism, however, teaches us not to fear the shadow, but to embrace it. The Buddha reminded us that nothing is permanent and nothing is fixed. Just as night turns into day and storms eventually clear, the darkness within us is not eternal. It is part of our becoming. To truly fall in love with yourself, you must stop rejecting your shadow and begin embracing it as part of your wholeness. The shadow does not disappear just because you ignore it. In fact, the more you suppress it, the stronger it becomes. Anger repressed turns into bitterness. Fear denied turns into paralysis. Shame buried deep turns into self-hatred. But when you turn toward your shadow with awareness and compassion, something miraculous happens. It begins to transform. Darkness, when faced, becomes a teacher. Pain, when acknowledged, becomes wisdom. Fear, when accepted, becomes strength. Think of the lotus flower, one of the most sacred symbols in Buddhism. The lotus blooms with stunning beauty, but it does not grow in clear waters. It rises from the mud, from darkness, from filth. Without the mud, there would be no lotus. In the same way, your shadow is the mud of your soul. It holds the nutrients for your growth. The very struggles you wish you could erase are the same struggles that will give birth to your strength, your compassion, your resilience. To reject the mud is to reject the flower. To reject your shadow is to reject your wholeness. The first step to embracing your shadow is awareness. Sit quietly and ask yourself, what parts of me do I try to hide? What emotions do I judge as unacceptable? What memories do I avoid? What traits in others trigger me because they reflect something I deny in myself? Bringing these shadows into the light of awareness is not easy, but it is necessary. The Buddha taught that suffering does not end by running away from it. It ends by turning toward it with mindfulness. Once you are aware of your shadow, the second step is compassion. Do not approach your shadow as an enemy to be destroyed, but as a wounded child to be comforted. When you feel anger, instead of saying, "I should not feel this," say, "I see you, anger, and I will sit with you." When you feel fear, instead of saying, "I must hide this," say, "I see you, fear, and I will hold you." When you feel shame, instead of drowning in it, whisper, "I see you, shame, and I forgive you." Compassion does not mean indulging every emotion, but it does mean welcoming it without rejection. In the sanctuary of compassion, even your darkest parts can begin to heal. The third step is integration. Many people believe self-love means only embracing the positive parts of themselves, their talents, kindness, and beauty. But true self-love means embracing the whole of who you are, light and shadow alike. Integration means recognizing that your flaws and mistakes are not separate from you. They are part of your story. The fear that once paralyzed you may one day make you gentle with others who are afraid. The mistakes that once shamed you may one day make you wise in guiding others. The wounds that once broke you may one day become the cracks through which your light shines. Integration means saying, "I am not perfect, but I am whole. I am not flawless, but I am enough." Buddhism teaches us that balance is the middle path, the path between extremes. To reject your shadow is one extreme. To indulge it blindly is another. The middle path is to acknowledge it, accept it, and transform it into wisdom. When you walk this path, you discover that your shadow is not something to fear, but something to embrace. It is not a sign of weakness, but a source of depth. Without shadow, there is no contrast to appreciate light. Without suffering, there is no understanding of joy. Without wounds, there is no true compassion. Consider again the mirror. Most people look into it and see only fragments of themselves. They see the surface reflection, polished and curated, while hiding the shadows beneath. But when you fall in love with yourself fully, you stop hiding. You look into the mirror and say, Yes, I carry scars. Yes, I have flaws. Yes, I have shadows. But all of these belong to me, and I love myself not despite them, but with them. This is radical acceptance. This is the heart of self-love. Living with your shadow embraced changes everything. You no longer need to wear masks because you no longer fear being seen. You no longer attack yourself for your flaws because you have made peace with them. You no longer demand perfection because you understand that imperfection is the soil of growth. Instead of running from yourself, you walk hand in hand with your whole being, light and shadow together. This acceptance gives you freedom. When others criticize you, their words no longer devastate you because you have already made peace with your imperfections. When others reject you, it no longer destroys you because you no longer reject yourself. When challenges expose your fears or weaknesses, you no longer collapse because you know they are part of your humanity. By embracing your shadow, you become whole. By becoming whole, you become free. The Buddha once said, "As a solid rock is not shaken by the wind, so the wise are not shaken by praise or blame." This wisdom is possible only when you stop hiding from yourself. If you are at war with your shadow, you will always be fragile, always afraid of being exposed. But if you embrace your shadow, nothing can shake you. You are no longer pretending, you are no longer hiding, you are simply being and being fully. Imagine the peace that comes when you finally embrace your shadow. Instead of waking each day with a heart heavy with shame or fear, you wake with acceptance. Instead of constantly hiding parts of yourself, you live authentically. Instead of waiting for someone else to tell you that you are lovable, you already know you are lovable as a whole being. This is the gift of self-love through shadow work. It is the transformation of inner darkness into light. In the end, to fall in love with yourself is not to love only your light, but to love your whole being. It is to embrace the child within you who is scared. It is to forgive the person within you who has made mistakes. It is to comfort the part of you that still carries wounds. And it is to celebrate the person you are becoming, shaped by both light and shadow. This is the teaching of Lesson 13. To embrace your shadow, to make peace with your inner darkness, and to discover that even in the mud, the lotus of your soul can bloom. 14. The art of gentle forgiveness, freeing yourself from the prison of the past. There is a silent weight many people carry every day, a weight that does not come from the burdens of others, but from the unresolved heaviness within themselves, the weight of the past. For some, it is the memory of mistakes they cannot forget. For others, it is the echo of harsh words they once spoke, or the regrets of chances they did not take. For many, it is the shame of decisions they wish they could erase. This weight sits quietly in the background, influencing every step, every thought, every reflection in the mirror, and as long as it is carried without release, it prevents true self-love from ever blooming. Buddhism teaches us that clinging to the past is one of the main causes of suffering. The mind, untrained, loves to replay old scenes like a broken record, showing you again and again what you did wrong, how you failed, or why you should feel ashamed. But the past is like a shadow. It cannot be changed, it cannot be controlled, it cannot be relived. What has been done is already gone, as fleeting as yesterday's sunset. To continue clinging to it is to trap yourself in a prison of your own making, a prison built from guilt, shame, and regret. To fall in love with yourself truly, you must learn the art of gentle forgiveness. Forgiveness in Buddhism is not about denying or excusing harm. It is not about pretending mistakes did not happen or pretending pain was never caused. Forgiveness is about releasing the grip of the past on your heart. It is about choosing freedom over punishment, compassion over bitterness, peace over resentment. And perhaps the most overlooked form of forgiveness is self-forgiveness, the ability to say, "Yes, I have stumbled, but I am not defined by my stumbles. Yes, I have made mistakes, but I am still worthy of love. Think of a glass of muddy water. If you keep stirring it, the mud swirls endlessly, making the water unclear. But if you set the glass down and allow it to be still, the mud slowly settles and the water clears. Your past mistakes are like that mud. The more you stir them with self-hatred and guilt, the more they cloud your life. But if you allow your heart to be still, to sit with compassion, the mud begins to settle and clarity returns. Forgiveness is this stillness. It is the decision to stop stirring the mud, to stop feeding the cycle of punishment, and to allow healing to take place. Many resist self-forgiveness because they believe that punishing themselves keeps them responsible. They think, if I keep reminding myself of my mistake, I will not repeat it. But the truth is that self-punishment does not prevent mistakes. It keeps you trapped in them. You become so busy condemning yourself that you never learn, never grow, never evolve. Buddhism teaches that everything can be used as a teacher, even your errors. But to learn from them, you must release shame and embrace compassion. Forgiveness allows the lesson to remain while the suffering fades away. Compassion is the foundation of self-forgiveness. The Buddha often spoke of compassion as the ability to understand suffering without judgment. Imagine you are holding a small child who has broken something precious. The child is already crying, already scared, already ashamed. Would you raise your voice and punish them further? Or would you kneel, wipe their tears and say, "It's okay, mistakes happen, you are still loved"? This is the approach you must learn to take with yourself. When you break something in your life, whether it is a relationship, a promise, or even your own heart, you must meet yourself not with condemnation, but with compassion. Self-forgiveness is not only about releasing the past, but also about reclaiming your future. When you are trapped in guilt, you cannot move forward. You repeat the same mistakes because you still identify with them. But when you forgive yourself, you create space for new choices, new paths, new ways of being. Forgiveness says, "I am not who I was yesterday. I am becoming someone new today." It honors the Buddhist teaching of impermanence, that you are never fixed, always changing, always becoming. Forgiveness also teaches you humility. To forgive yourself is to admit that you are human, and being human means being imperfect. No one walks through life without falling. No one grows without error. The Buddha himself taught that suffering is part of life and mistakes are part of the path. What matters is not that you fall, but that you rise. Forgiveness allows you to rise without carrying chains. One practice that Buddhism offers for forgiveness is metta bhavana, loving-kindness meditation. In this practice, you sit quietly and repeat phrases of goodwill. May I be safe, may I be healthy, may I be happy, may I live with ease. At first, when guilt is heavy, these phrases may feel false. Your mind may resist, saying, "I do not deserve happiness, I do not deserve ease." But if you continue gently, day after day, your heart begins to soften. The walls of shame begin to crumble. Slowly, you begin to believe that you are worthy of peace. This is the gentle way of forgiveness, not forced, not rushed, but patient, like the slow unfurling of a lotus flower. Forgiving yourself also changes how you relate to others. When you carry unresolved shame, you often project it outward. You become harsh, judgmental, quick to condemn others, because you cannot accept imperfection in yourself. But when you forgive yourself, you naturally become more forgiving of others. You understand that everyone stumbles, everyone carries wounds, everyone is trying to heal. Forgiveness softens the heart, not just toward yourself, but toward the world. To practice forgiveness, reflect on a mistake you have carried for too long. Bring it to mind gently. Instead of replaying the guilt, imagine yourself holding that mistake as you would a fragile object. Whisper to it, "I see you. You are part of my past, but you do not define me. I forgive myself for carrying you so harshly. I am ready to let you go." Then place it down, in your mind's eye, like placing a stone on the ground after a long journey. Feel the lightness that comes when you are no longer carrying it. This is forgiveness, the release of unnecessary weight. Forgiveness is also an act of love toward your future self. Imagine the person you are becoming. Do they deserve to carry the burdens of your past forever? Or do they deserve a lighter path, a heart unchained, a spirit free to grow? Each time you forgive yourself, you are not erasing your past. You are honoring your future. You are saying, "I will not abandon myself to shame. I will walk forward with compassion." The Buddha once said, "Holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned." In the same way, holding on to guilt is like holding a burning coal against yourself. Forgiveness is the act of releasing it, of letting go before it destroys you. Imagine how your life changes when you master this art of gentle forgiveness. Instead of waking each day with regret heavy on your chest, you rise with lightness. Instead of shrinking when you remember your past, you stand tall, knowing it has shaped you but does not define you. Instead of carrying shame like a wound, you carry wisdom like a jewel. You become free, not because your past disappears, but because you have transformed it into a teacher, not a prison. This is the gift of forgiveness. Freedom. Freedom to love yourself as you are. Freedom to live without chains. Freedom to walk your path with dignity, compassion, and peace. To fall in love with yourself fully, you must forgive yourself gently. You must lay down the burdens of the past, embrace your humanity, and step forward with compassion. And in this freedom, you discover a love that is unshakable, not because you are flawless, but because you are whole. 15. The courage to be authentic, living as your true self without fear. Every human being is born authentic. A child does not pretend to be someone else. They laugh when they are happy, cry when they are sad, reach when they desire, and withdraw when they feel afraid. They do not wear masks, and they do not worry about judgment. But as we grow older, something changes. Slowly, we learn that the world has expectations. We are told to behave a certain way to be accepted, to speak a certain way to be respected, to look a certain way to be loved. We learn to wear masks to gain approval, and with time, those masks become so familiar that we begin to confuse them with who we truly are. Buddhism teaches us that suffering arises when we are disconnected from our true nature. When you live behind masks for too long, you begin to feel restless, heavy, and empty. You may achieve success, gain recognition, or earn the approval of others, but deep inside you feel unsatisfied because the life you are living does not belong to you. It belongs to the image you created. To truly fall in love with yourself, you must find the courage to return to authenticity, to live as your true self without fear. Authenticity does not mean acting without wisdom or disregarding others. It means aligning your life with your values, your heart, and your truth. It means no longer betraying yourself to gain temporary acceptance. It means trusting that who you are, without pretense, without masks, is already worthy of love. This is not an easy path, because society constantly pressures us to conform. But Buddhism reminds us that the path to freedom is not the path of conformity, it is the path of truth. The first step to authenticity is awareness. You must ask yourself, where am I living as a mask? Where am I hiding my truth? Where am I betraying myself to please others? Perhaps you remain in a job you dislike because you fear disappointing your family. Perhaps you pretend to be happy in relationships where your soul feels unseen. Perhaps you silence your opinions because you fear judgment. Each of these choices is a betrayal of your authentic self, and each betrayal creates suffering. Awareness shines a light on these betrayals, allowing you to see clearly where you are living falsely. Once you see where you are hiding, the second step is courage. Authenticity requires courage because it often means standing alone. When you remove your masks, some people will no longer approve. When you speak your truth, some people will disagree. When you choose a path true to your soul, some people will not understand. But Buddhism teaches that the approval of others is impermanent. It changes with their moods, their preferences, and their own illusions. If you live for their approval, you will never find peace. Courage means choosing truth over approval, even when it feels frightening. The third step is compassion. When you begin to live authentically, your inner critic may rise. It may say, "Who are you to live freely? Who are you to choose your own path? What if you fail? What if you are rejected?" These fears are natural, but they must be met with compassion. Authenticity is not about perfection, it is about honesty. Compassion allows you to walk gently with yourself as you practice living more truthfully each day. It reminds you that mistakes are part of the journey, and that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. Living authentically also requires letting go of comparison. You cannot be your true self if you are constantly measuring yourself against others. Comparison makes you wear masks to compete, to appear successful, to prove your worth. But Buddhism reminds us that each person has their own karma, their own path, their own timing. Just as a tree does not try to bloom like a flower, you are not meant to live another's life. Authenticity means embracing your unique rhythm, your unique story, your unique expression of being. To live authentically is to embrace impermanence. You will not always remain the same, and that is natural. Authenticity does not mean clinging to one rigid identity. It means allowing yourself to evolve honestly. Who you were 5 years ago is not who you are today, and who you are today is not who you will be tomorrow. Authenticity means honoring each version of yourself as it emerges, without shame for what has passed and without fear for what is becoming. Think of the Buddha himself. He was born a prince, surrounded by luxury, destined for a life of comfort. But he felt restless, unsatisfied, because that life was not aligned with his truth. He could have stayed in the palace, wearing the mask of a royal heir, pleasing his family and fulfilling society's expectations. But he chose authenticity. He chose to leave the palace, to seek truth, to follow the calling of his soul. In doing so, he disappointed some, confused many, and walked a path that few understood. Yet his courage to be authentic gave birth to wisdom that has guided millions. His story reminds us that authenticity is not always easy, but it is always freeing. When you live authentically, you discover a new kind of peace. You no longer waste energy pretending, performing, or hiding. You no longer feel the exhaustion of living someone else's life. You wake each day with alignment, knowing that the choices you make belong to you. This peace radiates outward because people can feel authenticity. It carries a quiet strength, a dignity that does not need to be loud. Authenticity inspires others because it gives them permission to remove their own masks. Authenticity also transforms relationships. When you wear masks, your connections remain shallow because people are connecting to the image you present, not your true self. But when you live authentically, you attract relationships built on honesty, respect, and genuine love. Not everyone will stay. Those who valued only your mask may leave, but those who remain will love you not for your performance, but for your truth. These are the relationships that bring deep nourishment to the soul. To practice authenticity, begin small. Speak your truth gently in moments where you would usually remain silent. Make choices that align with your heart, even if they surprise others. Allow yourself to express your feelings without shame. Each small act of authenticity strengthens your courage until it becomes natural to live in alignment with your truth. The Buddha once said, "Better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace." In the same way, better than 1,000 false gestures is one authentic act. Better than 1,000 masks is one true face. Better than 1,000 shallow connections is one genuine bond. Authenticity may not make you admired by everyone, but it will make you at peace with yourself, and that peace is priceless. Imagine standing before the mirror without masks. Imagine looking into your own eyes and seeing not the roles you play, not the expectations you try to meet, but your true essence. Imagine smiling at that essence, saying, "This is me, imperfect, evolving, but true, and I love myself for it." That is the gift of authenticity. In the end, the courage to be authentic is the courage to live freely. It is the courage to choose truth over approval, self-respect over performance, peace over pretense. It is the courage to love yourself not as an image, but as a being. To fall in love with yourself fully, you must embrace authenticity. For only when you live as your true self can you discover the deepest form of love, the love that is unconditional, unshakable, and free. 16. The path of inner freedom, letting go of expectations and living in peace. 16. The path of inner freedom, letting go of expectations and living in peace. If there is one invisible chain that binds countless people to suffering, it is the chain of expectations. From the time we are children, expectations are placed upon us. Parents expect us to achieve certain goals. Teachers expect us to perform in certain ways. Society expects us to fit into molds, to follow specific paths, to succeed according to standards it has defined. As we grow, these expectations multiply until they become internalized. Soon, we no longer need others to pressure us. We pressure ourselves. We expect ourselves to never fail, to always please, to constantly achieve, to be flawless in body, mind, and spirit. And when we inevitably fall short, we punish ourselves with guilt, shame, and self-criticism. Buddhism teaches us that clinging to expectations, whether our own or those of others, is one of the root causes of suffering. Expectations are illusions about how things should be, and when reality does not match those illusions, we suffer. This is true not only in our relationships with others, but also in our relationship with ourselves. To fall in love with yourself truly, you must free yourself from the burden of expectations. You must learn to walk the path of inner freedom, where peace comes not from meeting illusions, but from embracing reality as it is. Expectations are like a heavy backpack you carry everywhere. Each demand, each should, each comparison adds another stone. The weight grows heavier with time, bending your spirit, draining your joy. And yet, because the backpack has been with you for so long, you may not even realize you are carrying it. You may think the heaviness is simply part of life. But Buddhism invites you to pause, to look into the backpack, and to ask, whose stones am I carrying? Are they truly mine, or did I pick them up from others? Often you will find that many of the expectations you punish yourself with do not belong to you at all. They are borrowed from parents, culture, society, or peers. When you realize this, you gain the power to put the stones down. The first step on the path of inner freedom is awareness. Notice the expectations that dominate your thoughts. When you feel anxious, ask yourself, what expectation am I clinging to right now? Perhaps it is the belief that you should always be successful, that you should never feel weak, that you should already have achieved more by now. Awareness helps you see that these are not universal truths. They are simply ideas your mind has attached to. And once you see them, you can begin to release them. The second step is acceptance. Acceptance does not mean resignation. It means meeting reality without resistance. If you expect yourself never to make mistakes, you will suffer every time you do. But if you accept that mistakes are part of growth, you will learn from them with compassion. If you expect your body to remain youthful forever, you will suffer with every wrinkle. But if you accept impermanence, you will find beauty in each stage of your body's journey. Acceptance is the antidote to expectation because it replaces illusion with reality. The third step is compassion. When you release expectations, you may notice how harshly you have treated yourself for not living up to them. You may feel grief for the years you spent punishing yourself, shame for the burdens you carried, sorrow for the love you withheld from yourself. Compassion is necessary here. Sit quietly, place your hand on your heart and whisper, "I forgive myself for the expectations I could not meet. I release myself from the prison of should. I allow myself to be as I am." This practice may feel tender, even emotional, but it is deeply healing. The path of inner freedom also requires letting go of comparison. Comparison is simply another form of expectation. It is the belief that you should be where someone else is, achieve what they have achieved, or look the way they look. But Buddhism reminds us that each being has their own karma, their own path, their own rhythm. Just as a river does not compare itself to the mountain, you are not meant to live another's story. Freedom comes when you stop measuring your worth against others and begin honoring your own journey. Authenticity flourishes when expectations are released. When you no longer carry the weight of should, you are free to live as you are. You speak more honestly, choose more boldly, and act more lovingly. You discover what truly matters to you, not what was expected of you, but what your heart genuinely desires. This is inner freedom, to live aligned with your truth, unburdened by illusions, unshaken by judgment. Buddhism also teaches that expectations are often tied to attachment, the desire for things to remain fixed. We expect happiness to last forever, relationships to never change, life to follow our plans. But life is impermanent. Everything shifts, grows, fades, and transforms. When you cling to fixed expectations, you fight against the natural flow of life, and in that resistance, you suffer. But when you let go, when you trust impermanence, you discover peace. You realize that life does not need to meet your expectations to be beautiful. It is already beautiful as it is. Think of the sky. Clouds come and go, sometimes heavy and dark, sometimes light and bright. If the sky expected only sunshine, it would suffer with every storm. But the sky does not resist. It allows each cloud to pass, knowing that no cloud is permanent. In the same way, when you release expectations, you allow life to unfold naturally. You accept joy when it comes, endure sorrow when it arrives, and remain steady in the knowledge that both are temporary. This steadiness is the essence of inner freedom. When you live with inner freedom, you begin to love yourself differently. You no longer punish yourself for not meeting illusions. You no longer demand perfection. You no longer reject yourself when you stumble. Instead, you embrace your humanity with all its strengths and weaknesses. You treat yourself with the same kindness you would offer a loved one. You recognize that your worth is not measured by what you achieve, but by the simple fact that you exist. This freedom also transforms relationships. When you release expectations of yourself, you also release expectations of others. You stop demanding that they behave a certain way to make you happy. You allow them to be as they are, just as you allow yourself to be as you are. This creates space for genuine connection, free of control, free of disappointment. Love becomes freer, lighter, more authentic. The Buddha once said, "Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without." Expectations are always external. They are about what should happen outside of you. But peace is always internal. It comes when you release those shoulds and rest in what is. To live with inner freedom is to stop waiting for life to align with your expectations before you allow yourself to be at peace. It is to choose peace now, regardless of conditions. Imagine waking each day without the weight of expectations. Imagine looking in the mirror and saying, "I am enough, not because I meet every standard, but because I exist." Imagine walking through life without the constant pressure to prove, to perform, to perfect. Imagine living with the freedom to be yourself, to follow your own rhythm, to embrace life as it unfolds. This is the path of inner freedom. To fall in love with yourself fully, you must walk this path. You must lay down the heavy backpack of expectations, embrace the lightness of acceptance, and step into the freedom of authenticity. Only then will you discover a love that is not conditional, not fragile, not dependent on illusions, but a love that is steady, unshakable, and free. 17. The gift of stillness. Discovering yourself in the quiet spaces of life. In today's world, silence is rare. Our days are filled with noise, the hum of machines, the endless stream of notifications, the chatter of others, and perhaps most persistently, the ceaseless voice of our own thoughts. We move from one distraction to another, constantly seeking stimulation. For many, the idea of sitting in silence, even for a few minutes, feels unbearable. Yet it is precisely in silence that we can begin to see ourselves clearly. The Buddha taught that stillness is not emptiness, but fullness. It is in stillness that the truth of who we are arises, free from illusions, free from noise. To fall in love with yourself truly, you must learn to embrace the gift of stillness, for it is in quiet spaces that you discover your own essence. Why do we avoid stillness? Because stillness brings us face to face with ourselves. When the world is quiet, the thoughts we have buried begin to rise. Regrets, fears, insecurities, unprocessed pain, all of them surface in silence. This is why many people run from it, filling their days with endless activity. But Buddhism teaches that the only way to find freedom is to face what arises, not to escape it. In stillness, you meet yourself honestly, without distraction. At first, this can feel uncomfortable, even painful. But if you remain patient, the discomfort gives way to clarity, and the clarity gives way to peace. The mind is like a pond. When disturbed, its waters ripple, and the reflection becomes distorted. But when still, the water clears, and everything is reflected as it truly is. Your mind is no different. When you are constantly busy, restless, or distracted, you cannot see yourself clearly. But in stillness, the ripples settle, and your reflection appears, authentic, unmasked, whole. This is the essence of self-love. To be able to sit quietly with yourself, without needing to escape, and to feel at home in your own presence. Practicing stillness begins with the breath. The Buddha taught that the breath is the bridge between body and mind, the anchor that keeps us in the present. By focusing on your breathing, you quiet the endless chatter of thought. You begin to notice the rise and fall of your chest, the air flowing in and out, the steady rhythm that has been with you since birth. Each breath is a reminder. You are alive, you are here, and that is enough. In these moments, you do not need to achieve anything or become anything. Simply being is enough. As you practice stillness, you may notice a shift. The critical voice that usually dominates your mind begins to soften. The fears that once seemed overwhelming begin to lose their grip. The regrets that once replayed endlessly begin to fade. In the silence, you realize that these voices are not your essence. They are passing clouds. Beneath them, there is a deeper presence, a steady awareness that is untouched by criticism, untouched by fear, untouched by the illusions of the mind. This presence is your true self, and to connect with it is to fall in love with yourself at the deepest level. Stillness also teaches you to appreciate life more fully. When you are constantly rushing, you miss the beauty of the present. You do not notice the way sunlight filters through the leaves, the sound of rain on the roof, the warmth of a smile. But in stillness, your senses awaken. You begin to see, hear, and feel with clarity. Life becomes richer, not because it has changed, but because you have become present to it. This presence nourishes self-love, because you realize that joy is not something you must chase in the future. It is already here, in this moment, waiting to be noticed. The Buddha once said, "Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without." Stillness is the doorway to this inner peace. It reminds you that you do not need to search endlessly outside yourself for happiness. You do not need to drown in distractions, achievements, or the approval of others. Everything you seek, peace, love, worthiness, is already within you, waiting to be uncovered in the quiet spaces of your life. Stillness also heals. Many people carry wounds from the past, wounds they never allow themselves to feel fully. They distract themselves to avoid the pain, but avoidance does not heal, it only delays. In stillness, those wounds arise. Tears may come, old memories may resurface, but in the silence of mindfulness, you learn to hold those wounds with compassion. You breathe into them, acknowledging them without judgment. Slowly, the wounds begin to close, not because you forced them, but because you finally gave them the attention they needed. Self-love grows stronger each time you choose to sit with your pain instead of abandoning yourself in distraction. To embrace stillness, you must also let go of fear. Many people fear silence because they equate it with emptiness. But silence is not empty. It is full of truth. In silence, you realize that you are not your thoughts, not your achievements, not your roles. You are something deeper, something unshakable. This realization can feel overwhelming at first, but with practice, it becomes the most liberating truth you will ever know. Living with stillness does not mean withdrawing from the world. It does not mean abandoning responsibility or isolating yourself. It means carrying silence within you, even in the midst of activity. It means finding moments of pause, even in busy days. It means walking with mindfulness, speaking with awareness, listening with presence. When you live this way, you carry peace with you everywhere, because peace is no longer dependent on circumstances. It is rooted in your own stillness. Imagine beginning each day with a few moments of silence, breathing deeply, connecting with yourself before the world demands your attention. Imagine pausing throughout the day to notice your breath, to feel the ground beneath your feet, to reconnect with the present. Imagine ending each night in stillness, letting go of the noise of the day and returning to your sanctuary within. These small acts transform not only your relationship with yourself, but also with life itself. The gift of stillness is that it allows you to love yourself as you are, without conditions. In silence, you realize you do not need to prove anything, achieve anything, or become anything else to be worthy of love. You are already enough. You are already whole. You are already loved. This realization is not loud. It is quiet, like the steady flame of a candle, but once discovered, it becomes the foundation of your self-love, unshakable and eternal. To fall in love with yourself fully, you must embrace stillness. You must learn to sit in silence without fear, to face your inner world with compassion, and to rest in the awareness of your true self. This is the path of peace, the path of freedom, the path of love. And when you discover it, you no longer run from silence. You welcome it, for it is in silence that you meet yourself most deeply. 18. The power of sacred solitude, finding wholeness in your own company. Loneliness is one of the greatest fears of the human heart. People will often remain in unhealthy relationships, cling to false friendships, or fill their lives with endless distractions just to avoid being alone. To be alone, many believe, is to be incomplete, unloved, or forgotten. Yet Buddhism teaches us a different truth. Solitude is not a curse, but a sacred gift. Loneliness is the pain of being disconnected from yourself, while solitude is the joy of being at home within your own heart. To fall in love with yourself fully, you must learn to transform loneliness into sacred solitude, discovering wholeness in your own company. The Buddha himself often withdrew into solitude. After leaving his palace, he spent years in forests and quiet places, sitting in meditation, facing himself without distraction. He taught that stillness and solitude are essential for awakening, not because the world is unimportant, but because the inner world must be seen clearly before peace can be found. In solitude, you strip away the noise of others' expectations and finally hear your own truth. Why do so many fear solitude? Because in silence, the masks fall. When no one else is watching, you are left with your raw self, your thoughts, your fears, your wounds, your insecurities. If you have spent your life running from these inner shadows, solitude feels like exposure. But Buddhism reminds us that healing begins when we stop running. Solitude is not emptiness, it is a mirror. In solitude, you see yourself clearly, and if you remain with compassion, you learn to love what you see. The first step in embracing solitude is to shift your perspective. Loneliness says, I am incomplete without others. Solitude says, I am whole within myself, and others are a blessing, not a requirement for my worth. This shift is powerful. When you see solitude as sacred, you no longer fear being alone. You begin to treasure the moments of quiet, knowing they are opportunities to reconnect with yourself, to rest from the noise of the world, and to nourish your spirit. The second step is to cultivate presence in solitude. Many people are physically alone, but mentally crowded. They fill their solitude with distractions, drowning in screens, noise, or constant activity. True solitude is not about the absence of people, but the presence of yourself. It is about sitting quietly, breathing, and being fully with your own heart. At first, this may feel uncomfortable, but as you practice, it becomes peaceful, even joyful. You begin to realize that your own company can be enough. In solitude, you also discover freedom. When you are constantly surrounded by others, you often adjust yourself to fit in, to please, to gain approval, to avoid rejection. But in solitude, there is no one to impress, no role to play, no mask to wear. You can simply be yourself. This freedom allows you to reconnect with your true essence beyond roles and expectations. You realize that you are not defined by what others think. You are defined by your own being. Buddhism teaches that the self is like a garden. If you never spend time tending it, weeds grow unchecked. Solitude is the time you give yourself to tend your inner garden, to remove weeds of doubt, to plant seeds of compassion, to water the flowers of mindfulness. When you neglect solitude, you become overgrown with noise, unable to hear your own wisdom. But when you embrace solitude, your garden flourishes, and your soul becomes a place of beauty and peace. Sacred solitude also heals your relationship with others. When you depend on others to fill your emptiness, you cling to them with desperation, which often drives them away. But when you feel whole in your own company, you approach relationships from abundance, not need. You no longer ask, "Will you complete me?" Instead, you ask, "Can we share our wholeness?" This creates healthier, freer, and more genuine connections. Others feel your peace, and your presence becomes a gift rather than a demand. Practicing solitude can be simple, yet profound. Begin by setting aside small moments of quiet each day. Sit without distractions, breathe deeply, and allow yourself to be present. Walk alone in nature, noticing the details around you, the rustle of leaves, the song of birds, the feel of the earth beneath your feet. Journal your thoughts, not to fix them, but to witness them. Over time, these practices transform solitude from something to avoid into something to treasure. The Buddha once said, "If you find no one to support you on the spiritual path, walk alone." There is no companionship with the immature. This teaching is not a rejection of others, but a reminder that solitude is sometimes necessary for growth. Walking alone does not mean being lonely. It means being willing to walk your path even if no one else understands it. When you love yourself enough to walk alone with courage, you discover a strength that no rejection can take away. In solitude, you also learn the truth of impermanence. People may come and go, relationships may shift, circumstances may change, but if your peace depends solely on others, it will crumble with every loss. Solitude teaches you to anchor your peace within, so that no matter who stays or leaves, you remain whole. This is the deepest freedom, to carry within you a sanctuary that cannot be taken away. Imagine waking up and feeling no fear of being alone. Imagine spending time in your own company with ease, enjoying your thoughts, your breath, your presence. Imagine walking through life knowing that your worth does not depend on being surrounded by others, but on the love you carry within. This is the power of sacred solitude. To fall in love with yourself fully, you must embrace solitude, not as punishment, but as blessing. You must sit with yourself, breathe with yourself, walk with yourself, and discover that your own presence is enough. In solitude, you uncover your truth. In solitude, you heal your wounds. In solitude, you find the love you were seeking all along, not from the outside, but from within. Trusting the flow of life, surrendering control, and discovering inner strength. One of the greatest struggles of the human heart is the desire to control. We want life to follow our plans, relationships to unfold according to our expectations, and outcomes to always favor us. We cling tightly to imagined timelines, believing happiness will come only if everything aligns exactly as we wish. But reality does not obey our control. Plans shift, people change, circumstances unfold in ways we never anticipated, and when life refuses to conform to our will, we suffer. Buddhism teaches us that this suffering comes not from life itself, but from our resistance to it. The Buddha reminded us that everything is impermanent, flowing, and beyond our grasp. To demand control over what is constantly changing is like trying to command the wind. It will only exhaust you. To truly fall in love with yourself and live in peace, you must learn to trust the flow of life. You must release the desperate need to control and surrender to the wisdom of existence. In this surrender, you do not become weak. You discover an inner strength more powerful than control could ever offer. Control is born from fear. When you feel insecure, you cling tighter, believing that if you can dictate every outcome, you will protect yourself from pain. But this clinging only deepens your suffering. It creates tension in your relationships, anxiety in your daily life, and exhaustion in your spirit. Imagine holding a handful of water tightly in your fist. The harder you squeeze, the more the water slips away. But if you open your palm gently, the water rests there naturally. Life is the same. The more you try to force it, the more it resists. The more you open, trust, and flow, the more it supports you. The first step in trusting the flow of life is awareness. Notice where you are clinging. Perhaps you constantly replay the past, wishing you could change it. Perhaps you anxiously plan the future, trying to guarantee an outcome. Perhaps you demand perfection from yourself, believing that if you control every detail, you will finally feel secure. These patterns are signs of control, Awareness helps you see them clearly, not to judge yourself, but to begin loosening your grip. The second step is surrender. Surrender is often misunderstood as giving up, but in Buddhism, surrender means aligning with reality. It means no longer fighting what is, but flowing with it. When sorrow arises, you allow yourself to feel it without resistance. When joy arises, you allow yourself to embrace it without clinging. When uncertainty arises, you breathe into it, trusting that not knowing is part of the path. Surrender does not mean passivity. It means acting wisely while releasing the illusion that you can dictate every outcome. The third step is trust. Trust is the heart of surrender. It is the belief that even when life unfolds differently than you planned, it is still guiding you toward growth. Trust does not mean that life will always be easy. It means you believe that even in difficulty there is wisdom. Trust is what allows you to walk forward when the path ahead is unclear. It is what allows you to release people who are not meant to stay. It is what allows you to face challenges without losing faith in yourself. Trust transforms fear into courage, uncertainty into openness, and suffering into strength. Trusting the flow of life also means trusting yourself. Many people doubt their ability to handle life's challenges. They cling to control because they fear they will not survive without it. But Buddhism reminds us that your inner strength is greater than you realize. Think of all the storms you have already survived, all the challenges you thought would break you but didn't. Each one is proof that you are stronger than your fear. To trust life is also to trust that you can meet whatever comes with resilience, wisdom, and compassion. The Buddha compared life to a river. The river flows, bending, twisting, carrying everything along. You cannot stop the river, and if you fight it, you will only exhaust yourself. But if you learn to float, to move with its current, it will carry you forward effortlessly. This is the practice of trust, to stop thrashing against life and to allow yourself to float, knowing the river knows where it is going. In relationships, trusting the flow means releasing the need to control others. You cannot force people to love you, to stay with you, or to act according to your expectations. When you try, you create tension, resentment, and disappointment. But when you release control, you allow others the freedom to be who they are. You love without clinging, you connect without demanding, you accept without fear. This kind of love is rare, but it is also the purest, love that flows freely, not chained by control. In your own growth, trusting the flow means releasing the need for perfection. You will not always grow in a straight line. You will stumble, repeat lessons, and sometimes feel lost. But trust reminds you that even setbacks are part of the journey. Every misstep carries wisdom. Every delay carries preparation. Every detour carries perspective. Trust allows you to embrace your path with patience, knowing that you are unfolding in your own time. When you live in trust, you discover peace. Anxiety fades because you are no longer trying to predict every outcome. Regret fades because you are no longer fighting the past. Fear fades because you know that whatever happens, you will meet it with strength. In trust, you stop resisting life, and in that acceptance, you find freedom. The Buddha once said, "The root of suffering is attachment." Control is simply another form of attachment to outcomes, to plans, to certainty. Trust is the release of that attachment. It is the decision to live in harmony with life, instead of in constant struggle against it. Imagine waking each day without the burden of control. Imagine living with openness, ready to embrace whatever arises. Imagine walking with the quiet confidence that even if life shifts, even if things fall apart, you will still be whole. This is the gift of trust. To fall in love with yourself fully, you must trust the flow of life. You must release the illusion of control, surrender to the wisdom of impermanence, and discover the inner strength that arises when you stop fighting and start flowing. When you trust, you live not with fear, but with peace, not with desperation, but with freedom. This is the teaching of Lesson 19, to let go, to trust, and to discover that in surrender you are not losing power, you are finding it. The gentle strength of patience, learning to grow at your own pace. In the rush of life, patience is often misunderstood as weakness. In a world that values speed, achievement, and instant results, waiting is seen as wasting. We are told to hurry, to push harder, to chase relentlessly, to force outcomes before their time. And yet, when we live this way, we find ourselves exhausted, frustrated, and constantly unsatisfied. The reason is simple. Growth, healing, and self-love do not follow the pace of society. They follow the pace of nature. And nature teaches us one thing clearly: everything unfolds in its own time. The Buddha often spoke of patience as one of the greatest forms of strength. Patience is not passive. It is not laziness or avoidance. Patience is a deep trust in the process of life. It is the courage to wait without anxiety, to act without rushing, to live without forcing. It is the understanding that everything, your healing, your growth, your journey of self-love, has its own rhythm. To fall in love with yourself fully, you must embrace the gentle strength of patience and learn to grow at your own pace. Think of a seed planted in the soil. You cannot demand that it sprout tomorrow, nor can you shout at it to bloom faster. If you dig it up every day to check its progress, you will only kill it. The seed needs time, water, sunlight, and nourishment, and in its own season, it becomes a flower. The same is true for you. Your healing cannot be rushed. Your growth cannot be forced. Your self-love cannot be manufactured overnight. You are a seed, and your unfolding takes time. Patience is the wisdom to honor this truth. The first step in cultivating patience is awareness of impermanence. Everything changes, wounds heal, seasons shift, lessons reveal themselves. Impatience arises when you believe that your current state is permanent. When you are in pain, impatience screams, "This will never end." When you are struggling, impatience insists, "I should be further by now." But Buddhism reminds us that nothing lasts forever. Just as winter gives way to spring, your suffering will give way to renewal. Patience allows you to remain steady in the winter, trusting that spring is already on its way. The second step is compassion. Impatience often comes from harsh self-judgment. You compare your progress to others, condemning yourself for being slower, weaker, or less successful. You replay mistakes, demanding that you should have learned faster. But compassion says, "I am human. My pace is my own. My journey does not need to look like anyone else's." Compassion softens the sharp edges of impatience, replacing frustration with gentleness. It allows you to hold yourself tenderly as you would a friend, knowing that growth cannot be rushed. The third step is presence. Impatience lives in the future. It is always about what has not yet arrived. It says, "I will love myself when I achieve this, when I heal that, when I become more." But presence reminds you that life is happening now. You do not need to wait until some future version of yourself appears to feel worthy. You are worthy now, even in your unfinished state. Presence anchors you in the moment, reminding you that love and peace are not waiting at the finish line. They are available here, in the breath you are taking right now. Patience also requires letting go of comparison. Just as no two flowers bloom at the same time, no two human beings grow at the same pace. To compare your timeline with another's is to deny your uniqueness. Buddhism teaches that each person's path is shaped by countless causes and conditions, karma, experiences, choices, opportunities. Your journey is yours alone, and it cannot be measured against anyone else's. Patience means trusting your path, even when it looks different from others. The Buddha once told the story of a farmer who became impatient with his crops. He pulled at the shoots, trying to make them grow faster, but in doing so, he damaged them. In the same way, when you push yourself harshly, demanding results before their time, you harm your own growth. Patience means tending your life with care, watering it with effort, nourishing it with wisdom, giving it light with compassion, then allowing it to unfold naturally. Practicing patience in daily life can transform the way you see yourself. When you make a mistake, instead of saying, "I should have known better," you say, "I am learning," and learning takes time. When you feel stuck, instead of saying, "I should be further by now," you say, "I'm exactly where I need to be for my growth." When you feel pain, instead of saying, "This must end now," you say, "This pain is temporary, and I will heal in my own season." Each of these shifts lightens your burden and deepens your love for yourself. Patience also teaches you resilience. Life will not always move according to your desires. Delays will come, challenges will arise, people will disappoint you. Impatience reacts with anger, frustration, and despair. Patience, however, responds with steadiness. It says, "This too shall pass. I can endure, I can wait, I can trust." Resilience grows from this steady patience, allowing you to meet life's difficulties without breaking. Perhaps the most beautiful gift of patience is peace. When you stop rushing, you begin to notice the beauty of each moment. You taste your food more fully. You listen to others more deeply. You enjoy the journey instead of fixating only on the destination. In this way, patience enriches your life, filling it with presence, gratitude, and love. Imagine living with patience as your guide. You no longer punish yourself for being unfinished. You no longer compare your pace to others. You no longer demand that life bend instantly to your will. Instead, you live in harmony with your own rhythm, trusting that everything is unfolding as it should. You breathe deeply, walk gently, and love yourself as you are, right now, not someday in the future. The Buddha said, "A jug fills drop by drop." This is the essence of patience. Your growth, your healing, your self-love. It all happens drop by drop, moment by moment, day by day. You may not see the changes instantly, but over time they accumulate into transformation. Patience is the trust that even when progress is invisible, it is still happening. To fall in love with yourself fully, you must embrace this gentle strength. You must release the demand to be perfect now, to be healed now, to be complete now. You must allow yourself to unfold naturally, like a flower, blooming in your own season. In this patience, you discover peace. In this patience, you discover love. And in this patience, you discover that you are enough, not because you have arrived, but because you are becoming. The radiance of gratitude, discovering abundance within your own heart. If there is one practice that transforms the way you see yourself and your life, it is gratitude. Most people spend their days focusing on what is missing, what they have not achieved, what they do not own, how far they still need to go. They compare themselves to others, measuring their worth against external standards, and in this comparison, they always feel lacking. This sense of lack creates restlessness, dissatisfaction, and self-criticism. It blinds them to the truth of their lives, that even now, in this very moment, there is abundance. Gratitude is the key that reveals this abundance. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from craving, the constant desire for things to be different than they are. Gratitude is the antidote to craving because it shifts your focus from what is missing to what is already present. It does not mean you stop striving or growing, but it means you no longer ignore the blessings along the way. Gratitude reminds you that you are already living within a web of miracles: your breath, your body, the food you eat, the sunlight, the earth, the relationships that nurture you. To fall in love with yourself fully, you must learn to see this radiance of gratitude, because gratitude turns even the simplest moments into gifts. Gratitude begins with awareness. Each day, countless blessings pass unnoticed. You wake in the morning, and without thought, your lungs fill with air. Your heart beats, your body rises. You open your eyes and see light, color, and beauty. These are miracles, yet they are so constant that you overlook them. Gratitude trains the mind to notice. It teaches you to pause and say, "This breath is precious, this moment is sacred, this life is a gift." The more you notice, the more you realize that abundance surrounds you. Gratitude is not limited to joyful moments. It extends to challenges as well. This is one of Buddhism's deepest teachings, that suffering itself can become a teacher. When you look back at your life, you will often see that the moments of greatest pain also carried the seeds of greatest growth. A heartbreak may have taught you resilience. A failure may have redirected you to a wiser path. A loss may have deepened your compassion. Gratitude does not mean denying pain. It means recognizing the wisdom hidden within it. When you can say, "I am grateful not only for my joys, but also for my struggles, because they have shaped me," you free yourself from bitterness and discover peace. Gratitude also transforms how you see yourself. Many people struggle with self-love because they focus only on their flaws. They say, "I am not smart enough, not strong enough, not beautiful enough." But gratitude shifts this perspective. Instead of focusing on what you lack, you focus on what you already have. You say, "I am grateful for my mind, which allows me to learn. I am grateful for my body, which carries me through life. I am grateful for my heart, which allows me to feel." This shift softens self-criticism and awakens self-love. In Buddhist practice, gratitude is often cultivated through mindfulness. When you eat, you pause to appreciate the food, the farmer who grew it, the rain that nourished it, the earth that sustained it, the countless causes and conditions that brought it to your plate. When you breathe, you pause to appreciate the air, the trees that purified it, the cycle of life that sustains it. When you interact with others, you pause to appreciate their presence, the kindness they offer, the lessons they bring. Gratitude is not abstract. It is rooted in daily awareness. The Buddha once said, "Let us rise up and be thankful, for if we didn't learn a lot today, at least we learned a little. If we didn't learn a little, at least we didn't get sick. If we got sick, at least we didn't die. So let us all be thankful." This teaching reminds us that gratitude is not about perfection. It is about perspective. No matter what is missing, there is always something to be grateful for. Gratitude is not waiting for everything to be ideal. It is choosing to see the beauty in what already exists. The practice of gratitude also dissolves envy and comparison. When you compare yourself to others, you focus on what you lack. But when you practice gratitude, you focus on your own blessings, and comparison loses its grip. You no longer feel threatened by others' success because you are anchored in your own abundance. You no longer feel diminished by others' beauty because you are grateful for your own uniqueness. Gratitude replaces jealousy with joy because you learn to celebrate both your gifts and the gifts of others. Gratitude is also deeply healing. Many people carry resentment toward themselves for past mistakes or toward others for harm caused. This resentment poisons the heart, keeping wounds open, but gratitude shifts your focus. Instead of obsessing over what went wrong, you begin to notice what went right. You begin to see not only the pain, but also the love, the lessons, the growth. Gratitude softens resentment and opens the heart to forgiveness. Practicing gratitude can be simple yet powerful. At the end of each day, reflect on 3 things you are grateful for. They do not need to be grand. They can be as simple as a smile from a stranger, a warm meal, or a moment of laughter. Write them down, breathe into them, feel their warmth in your heart. Over time, this practice rewires the mind. You begin to notice blessings more easily, to focus on abundance instead of lack. Gratitude becomes not just a practice, but a way of being. When gratitude becomes your way of being, your relationship with yourself changes. You no longer see yourself as broken, you see yourself as blessed. You no longer chase worthiness, you realize you are already worthy. You no longer wait for a perfect life to love yourself. You love yourself now because gratitude reveals that your life is already full. Imagine waking each morning with gratitude in your heart. You open your eyes, and instead of immediately thinking of what you lack, you think, I am grateful to wake today. I am grateful for this breath. I am grateful for another chance to live, to love, to learn. Imagine walking through your day noticing small miracles, the warmth of the sun, the kindness of others, the strength within yourself. Imagine ending each night not with complaints but with gratitude, resting in peace instead of restlessness. This is the radiance of gratitude. It lights your life from within. To fall in love with yourself fully, you must practice gratitude not only for life, but also for yourself. You must learn to say, I am grateful for my journey. I am grateful for my growth. I am grateful for the person I am becoming. Gratitude turns self-love from a struggle into a natural expression of awareness. It reminds you that you are already enough, already whole, already blessed. This is the teaching of Lesson 21. Gratitude is not about having more, but about seeing more. It is the ability to recognize abundance in every breath, every moment, every part of yourself. And when you live with gratitude, you live in love, love for life, love for others, and love for yourself. After walking through these many lessons of honesty, compassion, patience, trust, forgiveness, stillness, solitude, authenticity, gratitude, you may notice something. Each teaching, though spoken in different ways, points to the same truth. The path to peace, freedom, and love begins not outside, but within. For so long, we are taught to chase love in others, to prove our worth through achievement, to silence our pain with distractions, to hide our shadows behind masks. We exhaust ourselves trying to become enough, waiting for a day when finally the world will approve, when finally we will feel whole. But the Buddha's teachings, echoed through each of these lessons, remind us of a profound truth. You are already enough. You always were. You do not need to chase love. You need to return to it, for it has been within you all along. Self-love is not arrogance. It is not about inflating your ego or believing you are better than others. True self-love is gentle. It is humble. It is the recognition that just as every flower, every river, every mountain has its own place and purpose, so do you. It is the realization that your worth is not tied to perfection, but to existence. You are valuable not because of what you achieve, but because you are alive. When you fall in love with yourself, you stop abandoning yourself. You stop silencing your truth, stop punishing your heart, stop demanding perfection from your soul. Instead, you learn to be patient with your becoming, compassionate with your wounds, grateful for your journey. You become your own friend, your own ally, your own safe place. And in this relationship with yourself, you find the foundation of all peace. The Buddha often spoke of the middle way, the path between extremes, the balance that brings harmony. Self-love is the middle way of the heart. It is not self-indulgence, nor is it self-denial. It is the balance of caring for yourself while caring for the world. It is the wisdom of knowing that you cannot pour from an empty cup, that by nourishing yourself, you are better able to nourish others. Think of all you have learned along this path. You learn to see yourself without illusions, to release comparison, to embrace impermanence. You learn to forgive your past, to transform loneliness into solitude, to silence the critic with compassion. You learn to live authentically, to trust the flow of life, to grow patiently, and to radiate gratitude. Each of these teachings is a thread, and together they weave a tapestry of wholeness. This tapestry is your true home, a home within yourself that no storm can destroy. Life will not stop testing you. Challenges will still come. Pain will still arise. People may still leave, criticize, or misunderstand you. But when you love yourself, you no longer crumble under these trials. You remain rooted, steady, unshakable, because your worth no longer depends on shifting circumstances. You carry within you a love that is unconditional, a peace that is unbreakable, a freedom that is eternal. Imagine walking through life with this home in your heart. Imagine waking each morning not with dread, but with quiet joy, knowing that no matter what the day brings, you are already enough. Imagine meeting challenges not with fear, but with patience. Imagine meeting mistakes not with shame, but with compassion. Imagine meeting yourself in the mirror, not with criticism, but with love. This is the life that awaits you when you return home to yourself. And this is the final gift of the path. When you love yourself truly, you also love the world more deeply. Because you no longer live in fear or need, you can meet others with genuine kindness. You can celebrate their joy without envy, hold their pain without judgment, and walk beside them without clinging. Self-love does not isolate you, it connects you. It allows you to see clearly that the love you find within is the same love that flows through all beings. The Buddha once said, "You, yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection." Let these words stay with you. Repeat them when you feel doubt. Remember them when you feel unworthy. Let them guide you back, again and again, to the truth. You are deserving of love, your own love, first and foremost. So let this be your conclusion, not as an ending, but as a beginning. Begin to walk each day with patience, compassion, authenticity, trust, and gratitude. Begin to see yourself not as broken, but as becoming. Begin to rest in the sanctuary of your own heart. And when you do, you will discover that the love you once searched for in the world was always waiting for you, in the quiet, in the stillness, in the mirror. It was always here. It was always you.